I'd like to call to order the Clive City Council meeting for October 27th. Would the clerk please call roll?
Mayor Edwards.
Here.
Council members Klein.
Here.
McCoy.
Here.
Judkins.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Michelinani. Here.
Good, we're all accounted for. If you would rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have the agenda to approve. I know of no changes.
Approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is citizen presentation. This is the opportunity for someone to approach the council on an item that is not on the agenda. And Pete, I'll let you check and see if there's anyone online that would like to address the council. While he does that, let me just indicate what our operating principles are. Clive supports the pillars of character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting our work, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. So Pete, do we have anyone online that wants to participate?
If you would like to participate online, you can use the raise hand function. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, under reactions, click that emoji, and then you'll be able to use the raise hand function. If you're on your phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Your Honor, I don't see any hands going up.
Very good. Do we have anyone in the chamber tonight for an item that is not on the agenda? You would identify yourself for the record with your name and address, please.
My name is Robert Greenway. I live at 1901 Locust Street in Granger. I'm not making this a constant type deal. I was here last time around. It just so happened it worked out very well. I'm basically the Democratic candidate running for your district county supervisor. That's what I was here last time about. I just want to reiterate, and your present county supervisor did reaffirm that he represents the rural area. It's on KDLS. We had a question and answer. This is not campaigning. That's just a statement. And I want to make sure that that's what I said last time. I was bothered about that. Anyway, I also want to know, because I said something about the going to 5 county supervisors. He is anti on that. That's just a statement. The other thing I mentioned was I asked how county supervisors could spend a certain amount of money, $1 million or better, or whatever, without passage. Turned out the ARPA money, at that time, I had no knowledge of the terminology. I knew there's money coming in. Just for your benefit, the county's getting 18 million, which I think is sizable. Some's going to the police force, some's going to the county police force, some's going to conservation. I haven't heard all of it where they're moving their money to, but I felt that ought to be brought to your attention because I think it's very significant. Thanks for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.
Is there anyone else here in the chamber to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move to consent items.
Approval.
Second. The motion is second to approve the consent items. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the council please vote? And then would the clerk please post the vote on the consent items? That passes by a vote of 5-0. Next, we have our life-saving award presentation. Chief Rowe.
Mayor and Council, it's always a pleasure to present these awards, and we've got a big crowd here tonight to celebrate this one. The award we're going to present tonight is from September 3rd of 2022. It happened on 164th Street in Clive. There are a number of public safety professionals that were involved in this life-saving event, and they are Westcom dispatcher Chessie Statmiller, Clive police officers James Avon, Blake Crannell, and Adam Jones, and Urbandale fire medics TJ Harden, Tad Watson, Dan Burkett, Jackson Salter, and Corey Deaton. A little bit about the event. It happened at 3 p.m. on the Saturday, September 3rd. Westcom got a call reporting an unconscious male. Westcom call taker Chessie Statmiller coached bystanders, who included the patient's wife Sharon, to move him to the floor and walked her through starting CPR. Clive police officers James Avon, Blake Crannell, and Adam Jones arrived. They continued CPR, applied an AED, and delivered the first shock. Urbandale Station 43 personnel, TJ Harden, Tad Watson, Dan Burkett, Jackson Salter, and Corey Deaton arrived. They began preparing their equipment and delivered a second shock. The patient had a return of spontaneous circulation. Advanced life support measures continued with advanced airway procedures and assisted ventilations. The patient was transported to the hospital and returned home in about a week with a new combination pacemaker defibrillator and is doing very well as we speak. This event is a textbook example of the chain of survival working as it should. You had bystander CPR assisted by the Westcom call taker that was providing directions to her. You had Clive police arrive on scene first, apply the AED, and then the EMS professionals coming in behind to do the great work that they do. So what we'd like to do next is I'd like the mayor to come down and assist us with the awards. And we're going to go in chronological order. And I'd also like to invite up Westcom Chief Darren Riney and Westcom Dispatcher Chessie Statmiller. You guys go ahead and present the award. Thank you. Next, we'd like to welcome up Lieutenant Mark Rayberg, and he'll assist the mayor in making the presentations to officers Avon, Crannell, and Jones. Good job. Next, we'd like to welcome up Urbandale Fire Chief Jerry Holt, and he's going to work with the mayor in presenting awards to medics Harden, Watson, Burkett, Salter, and Deaton.
Yeah, that's
There we go. That looks great. Thank you. Oh, sure.
I see. I can see.
Sharon, would you join us up front? You had a very important role in this. You did CPR on your husband. You kept blood flowing, kept his heart oxygenated, kept his brain oxygenated. So you're deserving of a life-saving award. Mayor's going to present that. And Jim is asked to have the opportunity to say a few words this evening.
She saved my life that day. I know. And that's why I wanted her to stay right here beside me. I don't want her to get too far from me. Council members, I am not running for office. I'm just thankful that I'm still running. And this group is phenomenal. I didn't see them on September 3rd. I didn't know they were in my home, but they're welcome anytime they want to be there. Back on June 12th, I had an invitation to go down to South Carolina. A friend had invited me down to speak at his church. I'm not a pastor, so no one gets scared. But as a part of my message that I talked to them about was the brevity of life and how important that is. We're defined as, our life is like a mist. It's like a shadow. It's like a flower. Petals fall off and it blows away. I wish that I'd had this experience prior to that engagement in South Carolina. I know I would have done a better job. I know a little bit about it now. My wife told me that I turned to her on the afternoon of September 3rd and said, something is wrong. I have no recollection of that, none. I don't remember another thing until about 11 o'clock in the morning the following day. So with that, I want to read a letter. I sent a letter to each of these individuals. They deserve much more than a letter, but I wanted to say these things. The number 55 is a very important number for me today. Since experiencing cardiac arrest on September 3, because of a fantastic team of 11 individuals, I can stand here today. The dispatcher from the control center in West Des Moines, 3 patrol officers from Clive, 4 paramedics and 1 EMT from the Urbandale Fire Department made it possible to let me witness this meeting here today. But wait, that's only 9. I said 11. We had a good friend with us that day, Sue Hoffman, who is not with us this evening, but she assisted my wife. And of course, my wife, Sharon, whom I've been married to for 58 years, was key in all of this. I owe her a lot. I always have, and I'll try to pay up now. Every member of this team has special gifts, talents, and abilities. Every member of this team stepped up and put into practice knowledge that they have picked up over the years. And since I missed out on all of the activities on the afternoon of September 3, Sharon has told me how kind and compassionate and extremely professional each one of you were. I know that these character traits are going to carry over into everything you do beyond this date. You serve our communities well, and we need to remember that every minute. I firmly believe that all of our gifts, skills, and abilities are given to us by our Creator God. He desires that we employ those gifts for the benefit and betterment of others. I believe that, quote, we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God has prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. This amazing team did just that when they shifted into overdrive and performed a good work for me on the afternoon of September 3. What you did for me that day deserves more than a simple thank you. However, there's an old adage that says, thank you from the bottom of my heart. That sounds better in this case. I've learned that during cardiac arrest, the lower chamber of the heart ceases its normal beat and merely quivers, not pumping blood through your system like it's designed to. This situation must be reversed quickly, within minutes, or serious damage to vital organs or death will result. I thank you and I thank God. Upon receiving the CPR and the shocks, the lower chamber of my heart returned to a normal beat. So today I can say with all sincerity and with new meaning, thank you from the very bottom of my heart. Further, I say thank you, Lord, for assembling this tremendous team here and for dispatching them to help me. Oh yeah, back to that number 55 that I mentioned is so special to me. I'll tell you why. Today marks 55 days since that cardiac arrest. I have been given 55 days, which I very likely would not have had without the quick, quality emergency response that I received. Because of that, I can look ahead to next week to my 81st birthday. On the near horizon, I can see Thanksgiving and Christmas with my wonderful family. And I can only imagine how special our 59th wedding anniversary is going to be in May. So again, I'll close and say thank you again from the bottom of my heart. May God bless each one of you and your family far beyond anything that you can think, ask, or imagine. I'm forever grateful. Thank you. My wife wanted to just give a special quick thank you to someone as well.
Well, I want to say a quick thank you to all of you because you're amazing. But there's one person that I felt like I needed to thank especially because I found out later that she was a dispatcher in training. I said, no way. She did such an amazing job that day. And without her help, we just wouldn't be here. And I sent her a note too, and her note goes something like this. I wanted to send you a note of heartfelt thanks for the wonderful way you helped me on September 3rd when my husband Jim went into cardiac arrest. As the dispatcher, your cool head and helpful words were a very important link in saving Jim's life. I know that while you were directing me on how to perform CPR, which I did not know, you were also contacting this amazing team of police officers and paramedics who sped to our home. They were there very shortly. They got there really fast and delivered life-saving measures that revived Jim's heart. Without their help, without all of your help, my precious life mate would be no longer with my family and myself. Words can never say enough, and I thank God for the wonderful help you provided on that terrifying day. Thanks for what you did for me and for the help you will continue to provide to others in the days to come, because I know you will. And Chelsea, to me, you're a pro.
If we could bring everybody together sort of in this corner, I think I can get everybody to one shot.
Now, guys, I'll tell you what, I promise I'll stand up.
All right. Take a few of this. What do you want to use?
Mr. Mayor, as the Urbandale team leaves for the firefighters from Urbandale and the chief, take a moment to thank you all for the partnership we've had. not many will understand that this is a seamless partnership that we've made over the last few years. We don't care who shows up. Came into the council meeting tonight and an Urbandale truck was outside. I didn't think twice, right? Many don't care who shows, if it's Urbandale or Clive, but this partnership has been seamless. And tonight is credit to that. So thank you all very much for that.
Thank you all for this opportunity and thank you for the wise use of the people from the different communities. That is key. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
How do we top that? Yeah, I have to refresh.
Yeah.
We'll pause just for a couple of minutes here.
Yeah,
and-
we're gonna have to refresh here.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough act to follow.
I'm up for it.
Next, we speak about vacating landscaping buffers.
So with that, we will move into,
Great, thank you. Good evening. As you set the stage for me tonight, we have a public hearing to vacate a landscaping buffer. This is the landscape buffer that at some point had been dedicated along the east property line where you guys just recently approved a site plan amendment for a 7 Brew kind of coffee kiosk. That is located directly across from commercial, so that buffer is not required due to the public hearing requirement that was set at the last meeting with the site plan. So we're here to actually vacate that easement tonight. So with that, I would take any questions you all may have, but staff would recommend approval of the vacation.
first, we have to make sure that we did publish the appropriate public notice.
Yes, Your
Did
Honor.
we?
It was published in the Des Moines Register on October 14th, 2022.
Very good.
I'll move to resolution.
Second.
Well, we have to close.
Oh,
I'd move to
Sorry,
close the
John.
public hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to close our public hearing. Before we do so, is there anyone here in the chambers to address the council on this matter or anyone online?
These rookies trying to jump in front of us.
I'm still a newbie. so.
We have no one online. So would the council please vote on closing the public hearing? And then would clerk please post that vote? And the motion to close the public hearing passes by a vote of 5-0. The next item would be a resolution.
Move to resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the council please vote? And would clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 5-0. Thank you. You're going to stay with us a while.
I am. You got me for a little bit here. Yep, that should be good. Thanks. So our next agenda item then, if we're ready, I think, okay, is for the Amari Vita at Shadow Creek development. We have 2 items for that tonight. The first is to amend the zoning change and development agreement that was originally passed in 2020 with the Shadow Creek North Planned Unit Development rezoning. Those amendments are related to landscaping and buffer requirements. At the time of the master plan for that PUD, only for certain was known what those single family development layouts would be. So that development agreement included language to establish a buffer between the single family area and what was being referred to as mixed residential. In this case, the developer has brought forward a detached townhome development that is senior oriented. And this is directly adjacent to the smaller single-family villa lots that have the more or less 55-foot street frontages with a little bit smaller homes on them. That is what makes up Shadow Creek's Plat 9 and 10. So in this case, the developments, the way they feel and function in the form is very similar to what they're immediately adjacent to. And staff agreed with the developer that the landscape buffer in this location on that south property line wasn't really necessary given the specific development proposal that came forward here is kind of that transitional buffer from the single family to what could still be further north of this site, would still allow for the potential for higher density residential or another townhome or single family development as well. So we know that will be forthcoming in the future. And then the other revision to that would be to modify the tree planting requirement. The development agreement used our commercial and multifamily requirement of 1.5 trees per 1,000 square foot of required open space. So we're recommending that we, for this area, do the requirement that is consistent with the R4 townhome district, which is 2 trees per dwelling unit. And that would be exclusive of the buffer areas they do have remaining on site. The final revision in that zoning change and development agreement would be related to the north buffer by the commercial, which is this area right here. The development agreement says that there'd be a 50-foot buffer required there through the purchase agreement with this developer and the underlying landowner. They were looking at trying to split that buffer 25 feet, 25 feet, which we see pretty commonly in our developments nowadays. However, it just got pretty tight on the site. So they are proposing a fence that's the solid 6-foot privacy fence with the substantial columns. In this case, kind of a stone wrapped look every 30-ish feet. And then reducing the buffer that would be installed adjacent to the commercial on the commercial side down to 30 feet. So it'd be 30 feet with the fence instead of 50 feet with no fence. So that is the what the developer is requesting. Staff doesn't really have concerns with reducing the buffer tree plantings in that area. And that would just be, the fence would just be installed on the portion that's adjacent to where that commercial is, which is just that hard corner with Meredith and Warrior. So those are the revisions proposed for zone change and development agreement. And now I can talk to you about the rest of the development layout quickly before we vote.
Ask some questions.
Yeah.
Mike, did you?
Go ahead.
Was P O Z okay with that revision with the fence and the limited site then?
Yes, they did recommend approval at their special meeting we held just a few weeks ago for this.
I'm always hesitant on these wood fences.
Mhm.
Right? And the wood fences don't get you more trees and they don't get you more landscaping. They just get you more wood fences that in 5 years or 10 years are dilapidated wood fences,
Mhm.
right? I think you've heard me multiple times up here. It's not just tonight or this development. I'm just not a fan of wood fences. And I think that buffer is not only a buffer for site, but it's a buffer for trees and planting and all that stuff. And so to me, it's getting away from the intention and cutting a bit of a corner that I don't personally care for.
What was the reason for not extending the fence the rest of the way? What's to the north of the eastern portion of this?
So that is what continues that mixed residential area. And there is a good likelihood that it'll end up being a similar type of product to what we're seeing here, just with the market conditions we've seen and some of the questions staff's taken on the property. So at this point, we didn't feel it was necessarily appropriate to do the full fence through that area. And the buffer would have only been required along the commercial part under the zoning change and development agreement.
Go ahead.
So a couple questions. I noticed in the report that some of the sewer is public, some is private. Can you explain that? What does that mean?
Yeah, so we do see that quite a bit. I can go over that with the site plan stuff if you want me to kind of run through that first. But there is a mix there. So what the public storm sewer is anything that picks up flows from off-site or the like road improvement areas that is conveying water outside of the private property to those storm detention facilities. Those are typically then public facilities. So if something went wrong, it would be a public project to fix or repair that. What is only really moving water that falls on the site and moving it within the site is a private storm
Is that
facility.
just a normal sewer setup for this type of scenario? Because I just read it a
Yeah.
little differently than what I think I've read in the past.
Yep. So that's pretty typical for our storm sewer. We have that throughout Shadow Creek North and South and the courtyards at Shadow Creek also.
Okay, I just must have read it differently then. And this is maybe more of a site plan thing, but can you explain or just talk about the fact that these are private streets as opposed to public? What was the rationale for that?
Yeah, so for the most part, I think our townhome developments all do the private street. It's what allows them to shrink that, what you typically think of as right of way, but in this case is some easements that overlap that give public access and utility rights. But it lets them shrink that down a little bit and then pull those units closer. So when they're trying to get a denser layout, they tend to go with the private street option.
The stormwater plan, one of the things we've talked extensively about is whose responsibility it is as you get silt into like a wet bottom pond or what you have right here. So at the end of the day, who's going to be responsible for that? As we've, again, in our water reclamation plan, we spent extensive time on this.
Mhm.
Who's going to be responsible for the upkeep of that facility?
So this is intended to be a private wet bottom pond. So that was an item, as you kind of alluded to there, that sometimes that long-term maintenance is not completed on private facilities. So with the stormwater management manual update in 2021, that included an easement and maintenance agreement that we now get with the final plat in situations like this that would cover that facility and give the city the right to go in and maintain if the private owner fails to do so in the future, and then also to put any of those costs back onto the property as a lien if we needed to recoup them that way. So we have that fail safe in the back, but it would be maintained by the private developer and then eventually transition to the HOA.
Any other questions on this part? If not, go to B.
All right, so then for the overall site layout, assuming that those zoning change and development agreement items are acceptable, they are proposing, as we talked about, a private street that will connect from Warrior Lane over to Westgate Parkway. And you can see there are units around that with kind of a loop drive in the middle. They do have a clubhouse community type building here. And that also has some private outdoor recreation opportunities there that if you would like some additional information on, the developer is here today and could talk about that a little bit more for some of those private offerings they have. The parkland dedication requirement, the staff report did have some information that there was maybe some confusion about the purchase agreement, but that has been rectified to staff's knowledge. They have amended that purchase agreement to include that parkland credit from the Shadow Creek North Bank. So that has been addressed. The aesthetic of the clubhouse and the units is a farmhouse aesthetic. So brick and stone that we typically see is going to be used more as accent materials. What you're seeing here is the clubhouse elevations. And there are some stone, vertical siding and lap siding. And then they do have 6 different facades for the individual units. And these units range from a little over 1,600 square feet to over 2,100 square feet is the size of these different options that they have. So they're all exceeding by quite a bit what the minimums in that zoning change and development agreement are. So as I'd stated, the brick and stone is really more accent materials, and you're going to see more variation through some of the siding directions, windows, trim options, and paint colors in this case. The Shadow Creek North area does have that architectural review committee that was set up with Vista Real Estate as the kind of master developer. So this would fall in line with what is allowed through that zoning change and development agreement. There's also some accent portions on some of these units that feature the metal roofing, which you see quite commonly in that farmhouse aesthetic. The landscaping plan does include the buffer plantings along Warrior Lane. And then here you can see the dark line that represents that fence. There are some tree plantings still on the townhome side of that to kind of break up that wall and add some more green to that side of it. The plantings on the commercial side would be planted at the time that developed with a commercial property for that 30-foot buffer requirement.
So the commercial side would be reduced as well on their buffer side for what they're going to develop.
So it would take the total
Right.
from 50 foot down to 30 foot with a fence.
Do we know
So-
what that commercial is going to be at this point? in time?
We do not.
Okay.
How many acres of commercial is there?
Oh, it's about 600 feet by 600 feet, give or take. So the math on that one, that gets beyond me tonight,
So
but
not much.
so it'd be a fairly small kind of
Gas
corner
station or
commercial.
something.
Yeah, neighborhood commercial use. So there is a future roadway extension shown here also that goes to serve that commercial property. It will not fully be installed with the development, but staff has worked with the developer to the easement will be granted with it. The purchase agreement with the underlying landowner does state it's the commercial property's obligation to install it. But we've worked with them to also put language in the purchase disclosures with the individual townhome units that will carry over if those lots are sold in the future before we have commercial development. And then also at the typical kind of road closed posts here at that little neck that will be paved, there will be signage there also indicating the future roadway. It's also been shown on kind of the marketing materials that the developers put together. So we think that that's sufficient, that people will understand that there is that connection for the future commercial.
For the private road, who's responsible for the streetlights on that?
So the streetlights will be private. We are awaiting the streetlight plan for that. My understanding is it'll be kind of the typical mid-am streetlights that we get throughout the community unless, I think they're all LED now, yeah. So unless they opt to do a more decorative streetlight like what we have on our parkways, it would be the standard streetlight.
Are you satisfied with the stormwater management plan?
Yes, there was one item that our engineer, Ray, is still reviewing to confirm that everything has been met. But it is a tweak. If there's an additional change, we have the bulk of everything satisfied there.
Are there sidewalks in here, Amanda? And what's the nearest connectivity to the trail system?
Yes, so there is a 5 foot sidewalk along the private streets here. And then there's an 8 foot internal loop trail that is part of their kind of recreation opportunity. With the improvements to Warrior Lane, which we know are still probably 10 years or so out, there will be the sidewalk recreation trail extended through here. And it comes down about right here is where it would connect into the trail access just off the screen that you cannot see where I'm pointing, about right here. And then also there's a sidewalk recreation trail here along Westgate Parkway. That one is actively being installed with each of those home permits that are pulled. So that one comes down then and also will connect to that trail. And the actual trail surfacing is not in yet. As you on the dais are all aware, we do have the sanitary sewer project with Waukee. So the installation of the actual trail through the Greenbelt is at this point largely dependent on that project. So a few years.
Yes.
Who will pay for that trail on that western side when Alice Road does get, if you're not putting it in until Alice Road in 10 years or?
With Warrior Lane?
Warrior Lane, yeah.
Yep. So we have the agreement for the Meredith Drive and Warrior Lane improvements that we went through with the Shadow Creek West development. So those costs for that sidewalk recreation trail, 5 foot of it, which is what the developer typically pays, are factored into those roadway expenses that are being collected at the time of final plat. So the city will have collected the funds of what that would cost today to construct if the developer did it. And then we will use that money in the future when we have to ultimately construct it.
Other questions? Otherwise, we're looking at a resolution.
Move the resolution approving the second amendment to zoning change development agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the resolution. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? While we're waiting, is that a pickleball court there? They've got the middle?
Yes, I believe there is a pickleball court shown.
Are you planning on playing, John?
Smart move.
Yeah.
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 What you're looking for right there. So smart.
So that resolution passes 5-0. Next,
Mr.
we
Mayor,
have a
can I
sub-
just say, I did vote yes, and I hesitated on that one. I still, that fence, we're gonna be talking about that fence in 10 years, 15 years, or when the commercial property comes up. I mean, I get the writing on the wall about the property, but I do not like in the future to continue to do that, giving up that buffer zone for something like that's completely against the intention of a buffer zone.
noted
you.
for the record.
Thank you.
Move the site plan permit play for Amari Vita at Shadow Creek Plat 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the site plan. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 5-0. Next, we've got Horizon Events Center, I think. And I can see our friends from Horizon are here, so we're pleased to have them here with us.
Yeah, so how do we do this, Pete?
Just go to presentation slideshow.
Here.
That one, wherever side. Start
Okay.
from the beginning. There you go. And then
Mhm.
Matthew, if you'd go ahead and change the input.
Try to do the display setting.
No, you're
All right, so I'll give a brief introduction before I invite Gary DeWard, the local manager of Horizon Event Center, up here to tell you about their festival proposal. But you all may recall, we have an agreement to complete with the Horizon Event Center that focused on kind of that long-range planning and next steps for this facility with the new ownership. We've seen a lot of success with that and had some great events brought to Clive. So they have an idea for an outdoor music festival that I will let Gary tell you about, but this is in front of you tonight as a temporary site plan approval. Many of the temporary site plans are something that is administratively approved by staff, but the ordinance does have some language in there about events that are going to have a more significant impact, such as something like an outdoor concert, would come before city council for your guys' approval. So that's why this one's before you tonight. And there are a list of conditions letter that was included in your packet that details the items that staff would still have to work through with the event center in this case. But there's a bit of a chicken or egg situation here. They need the approval to start booking the contracts for the performers, but they don't really know what the ticket sales are going to be until they know what the performers are. So we've worked through the bones of it and have agreement on what those next steps are. And those are along the lines of the items that would typically be administratively approved by staff anyway, such as restroom counts, occupancy, exiting, traffic control plan, things of that nature. So just to set the stage for that a little bit, and then I will invite Gary up to discuss the event with you all.
Thank you. Gary, if you would give your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Gary DeWard, 4819 147th Street in Urbandale. Am I able to click through?
Yes.
Or should I?
Space bar. should do it.
Spacebar should do it.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we've been, obviously over the past few years doing all sorts of different events inside the event center and renovating it. And with Barker Financial acquiring the neighboring property, the Woodsmith building, there's a large parcel of land, grass field basically, that we've been trying to figure out the best use of. And one of the ideas we have is to do an outdoor event, utilizing that space. And excuse me. So anyway, to jump back, we're talking about doing an outdoor music festival, utilizing the space neighboring the Horizon Event Center, an indoor-outdoor event where we would actually utilize the space inside the building and have the stage on the exterior of the property and the attendees outside and the things that we built inside of the building as well. Can you excuse me, please? Excuse me. Can you jump up there? Yep.
I gotcha. I'm Tariq with Horizon Event Center, booking and operations manager. As Gary mentioned, we acquired that property right next to us, the Woodsmith building, which is, I believe, a total of 10 acres or so, which has a grass area and some cemented area. We look to put the stage outside. Let's see if we can move along here. Stage outside with the speakers, all sound pointing to the north towards commercial. We are looking to use the indoor and outdoor area. We're thinking bluegrass, family friendly. That's the target we're going for, ending at 10:30. We know sound will be some of the questions. We know traffic will be some of the questions. We know parking will be some of the questions. We do think we can utilize some of the grass area for the parking and for the stage production area. If you're looking here at the picture, entrance to the festival grounds, we're actually entering through our new, if you've been over to Horizon lately, we have a new lobby area, which we added more bathrooms, a balcony with additional bathrooms. We would enter people through that new lobby, bring them through our sports hall, enter them out the back into the grass fill area, which you see here, where you see the vendors, the bar, the premium stage area, using that kind of what used to be an outdoor pool area as our kind of production area, semi trucks, tour buses, and allowing the indoor kind of pool area, which we used to have as kind of a hospitality area for our talent. We are, our expectations for this first year is probably thinking, if we get 3,000 people out there, this would be a great start, knowing that we intend to grow this. But we know that maybe a loss in the first year, but we think it's something that the community could really jump on board, especially with the green belt right there. Festival planning, what's been done, meetings with staff to establish general event details and layout. We developed a site plan, parking, traffic, security. Gary's done a great job working with Amanda in the city and police as well, as far as manicuring that relationship in general, but just working to make sure they are ahead of everything we're doing to make sure we're doing it the right way. Neighborhood engagement, we sent out a letter to, I believe it was 179 people who had the opportunity to come vote here, maybe more than that. Invited them over for open house, free wine, drinks, complain about a bluegrass festival to us, tell us your qualms, tell us your likes about it. We had about 25 people show up, including Mayor. Thank you. And we had the opportunity to show them what we have done so far, what we plan to do, and the outdoor area that we're looking at having the festival with. It was great excitement from them. I think everyone enjoys what we've been doing so far as adding the sports complex, still having the concert side, but starting to develop some of the additional property around that area.
Any concerns or comments that they brought up during that meeting?
No concerns or comments. One, I think everyone who came out did not know that, for the most part, that our concert hall was still having concerts. So they didn't realize any parking issues. They didn't realize any noise. I think one person mentioned Valley Prom. They heard some kids outside. But yep.
Weaver boys. It's always the Weaver boys.
Every time it's in the family. But for the most part, I think one thing that we've done that Gary did right when we started is stop charging for parking in a parking lot. That was one thing that was sending people into other parking lots, thinking they can beat the system, which then annoyed our neighbors, which then got complaints to the city, which then put us in a deeper hole. We took that away right away. We've you'll notice like next Saturday, we have Dustin Lynch coming in. You'll notice Gary in the neighborhoods, making sure he can't hear any pulse or sound. We switch off, calling each other, making sure the sound stays where it needs to be, whether it's a rock concert, country concert, hip hop concert, or a gun festival. We've been pretty much on top of just making sure we are abiding by everything we can do. But like Amanda said, this is the first step where we want to get approval so we can start getting some offers out there. Targeting May, possibly May 20th or something like that. A one-day festival, hopefully in the future, maybe 2 days, but hoping we can figure out a great path to make this a great city event.
Thank you. Questions, Eric?
Couple questions. One, good presentation. You guys look like you're well prepared.
Yep. I didn't even know I'd be standing up here, honestly. So I was here to watch.
You just never know, right?
You never know.
But
Gotta be ready.
I like the fact you guys really thought through these. You've taken a lot of proactive statements and actions that have in the neighborhood. And that was my question as well, Shrikant. So, what's there? Look, the biggest problem is sound and cars, right?
Yep, 100%.
That's what it comes down to. People getting annoyed and their glass shaking, things of that nature. What are you guys gonna be doing on the inside? You said it was inside, outside about?
Inside, we have currently, added 6 full court basketball hoops with additional 2 smaller ones, some concessions on which used to be the tennis courts. We will use that mainly to just enter people, get them inside, get them ticketed, wristband through security and back outside. There's no real plans yet for the inside, maybe jump houses, maybe additional stage. No plans yet, but just knowing that we have the inside as a second option if rain issue or any other issue. We would really love this to be outside for the first year, so we're gonna do everything we can to make it that way, but knowing that we have the flexibility to use both.
Yeah, and
both
that's key.
sides.
Look, I've done a lot of outdoor festivals as well, so I understand that weather is,
Weather is
the
a big
biggest
part of it.
biggest
And
unknown right there. So it's nice to have that secondary option
yes,
right next to it. So the last question, bluegrass. Don't hear a lot about bluegrass these days. How did you guys come up with that concept and how do you plan to market it to hit those attendance numbers that you're looking for?
so we came up with bluegrass. I think it was actually our CFO. He a follower like myself and knows that bluegrass is very family friendly. It's not a lot of bass, which has been our problem. We can have the treble up as high as we want. Neighbors don't complain. It's when it starts shaking your chandelier when we get the issues, and you don't get as much with the strings. So I think that was our first thought with bluegrass. And then knowing that we can go a little range, we can throw a little country in there. We can throw a little couple of things in there that will entice the public. I personally worked at Cumulus Media the last 7.5 years before I came over to Horizon. So with Nash FM, 95 KGGO on air for 98.3 The Vibe and KJJY. So we have some radio relationships. We work with iHeart, we work with Des Moines Radio Group. We also work with KCCI and a lot of media partners. We even brought in Blue Umbrella, who does City View, to talk about this event as well. So we'll have some partners out there. We'll have some sponsorships. Green Umbrella. Hopefully they're not here. Green Umbrella. A big part of this, I think, was the Greenbelt Trail. We haven't come up with a name yet. It may be the Greenbelt Festival. We would like to see some of these proceeds go back to the city. I think, yes, agreed. I think a big part of it is just that Greenbelt area that connects with Horizon, even the playground. I take my daughters to the playground right there off the Greenbelt. We'd love to see that look a little better, and we would love to be able to be a part of that as well.
Speaking on that, do you have any plans to do like, something to draw some of those folks in or allow people to like park their bike? If they're just coming off the trail or something?
Yes, we will be inviting people off the trail. We will have bike racks, 1 as barriers, 2 as bike rack area. We will be hoping to advertise along the trail as well, and even possibly doing some bike rides leading up to the event. Also just speaking with Iowa Ride and Ragbri for some of their future events that might be coming back through Des Moines for their 25th anniversary or whatever it may be, trying to cross promote with them as well. We have a lot of partners such as Bacon Fest and some other events that we've done that are going to help cross promote. I think a big part is knowing that even if we run into some parking issues, we do have some neighboring partners as well. So the first year we did Bacon Fest, we used Valley West Mall and did some buses from there. We also have worked with the Living History Farms as well. So we know that we'll have some Plan B parking partners, but we think we can handle most of it ourselves with bikes, trailers, and cars as well.
A couple things. I appreciate you tackling the neighbors. All of us get those phone calls in the past. I will tell you, kudos to you for, I haven't heard of that many complaints since you've all taken over
Thank you.
that site.
We take a lot of pride in that.
They're sporadic, and it used to be 11 o'clock phone calls, 10:30 phone calls, and we'd drive down to the neighborhood. I used to live up on the top of the bowl, I'll call it.
Oh, yeah.
And that music does travel very easily.
It carries across the plane, and that's one thing we're trying to fight every day. We even had an installation guy come in yesterday to look at how expensive it is, but something that we're probably going to do here shortly to insulate that main room as well. But in the meantime, we did a very expensive sound test, a company out of Minneapolis, to figure out what exactly we can play that music at, and even had some of our family members in the neighborhood knocking and making sure nothing was shaking.
I'd welcome you up at 89th Street too. Go on up there during that. I mean, it travels up there, and I do hear from my neighbors up there, and you can even come down to Lincoln and it's fine.
Yeah, it's just
up on the hill. It really shakes your house sometimes, or you can hear it.
And
you've done a much better job.
We hope to insulate to fix that completely. But one of the things with this festival is we'll end no matter what at 10:30, sound off, and then kind of clear out the streets to make things easier for our police officers as well with traffic afterwards. But I think that was a big part of this thought, was the sound's going to be an issue. But if we go bluegrass and we end early enough and we invite the neighbors in, whether it's with a discount, whether it's an open house and some wine, just hearing their qualms about the situation, but making sure we do what we can to make this a fun, successful event, but something we can do annually.
That'll go a long ways. You had me 20% the way with just your hat when you walked in the room. So well done. How about security? What's the plan?
Security, we'll have our, as usual, for all of our public events, we have our own personal security company. We use CSC, same as Wells Fargo Arena and some of the football teams around here. We also embark the help of Clive Police for almost all of our events, whether it's off-duty police. This one, normally a concert will have 2 to 4 off-duty police to the blessing of Detective Coleman. This one will definitely up the number there. But police, private security, and then we'll be fully staffed with our event staff as well.
Great, thank you.
If I could add to that, Lieutenant Rayberg, would you say on an event of this scale, would likely probably be tapping into some off-duty from some neighboring agencies too? So not overtaxing our folks, right?
Yeah, I would think just for traffic issues alone, we're probably gonna have to do that, but yeah, we typically won't staff enough on the street at any one time to cover an event. So yeah, hiring off duty, but we'll probably have to go to some other agencies.
Time does the event
That's
start?
pretty common.
We're looking at noon or 2 p.m. Kind of depends on some of the booking that we'll have to go through. And also with you guys on, what's too early, but we want to kind of keep it daytime, get as much sunlight as we can, get a little darkness for, the thrill of things. But keeping it a 8-hour to.
How many acts are you looking to have?
We haven't decided that yet. Maybe about 5 to 6 national acts and then breaking it down from there. But depending on what time we start, probably 12 to 15 acts throughout the day.
It's ambitious. It's a lot of moving.
It'll be a lot of moving pieces. It'll be a great festival. Gary's got his history. He ran Freetown Music Festival up in Forest City, and as that. And he's been all around the country putting on shows. Blake Shelton at our rivals, Kinnick Stadium. Gary's the one who put that one on as well. So he's
Always get this B team, don't they?
yeah, yep, exactly. Blake Shelton, who's he? But Gary has that history. I have that history with the media side and the live event side. So our biggest concerns are safety, sound, and traffic and parking. Right now, we know the bands will come. We'll work with some promoter partners and make sure the budget's there. We're willing to pay for the additional police. Also open to if there's a idea from you guys on should we close off a certain smaller street to make things feasible to flow traffic through. We think we can park our vendors in the Woodsmith building from 104th Street onto that cement, and then they can go onto the extended cement area where we can put tables.
Big asset for you guys having the Woodsmith part of your portfolio.
That was able to open a lot of doors for. Yep, a lot of
your footprint.
I agree. And the grass back there's even some tree line back there that if in years we decide to do some camping, we can probably find some fencing, not wooden fence, but find some fencing to clear that up. Go Cyclones.
Attention.
I got you.
Cyclones run it classy.
But really wanted to be a classy event. Like I said, if it had 5,000 people, we'd be shocked and we'd be happy, and we made sure we have security for it. But our intentions are 2,500 to 3,000 people, the same amount that we can fit in our front concert room. For one, in case there's a rain issue, that we can kind of just move it pretty easily. For two, just to give you guys a taste so that we know what we're doing, and then hopefully grow the event from year to year. And if it's something successful and Clive wants to do it, even doing some summer series or something like that, because I think we have a unique area where we're off of 235, 85 or 8035 and that corner of Hickman and 100th, where once you get on the grass behind the Woodsmith, it feels like you're not in town anymore. And there's not many properties that can offer that. And so we want to utilize it. So.
Ted?
Yeah, I think it's a really good plan. You're right. It's a great, unique location that provides a lot of opportunities. The big thing is with the neighborhood. And, many of us have dealt with a lot of issues in the past. And again, I think you have a good plan. I appreciate that you're working with staff on all that. I think a lot of it is just kind of building trust, yep. Right? That 100%. We've been burned a lot in the past on this. And when I saw, because when Matt brought this to us initially a couple months back, my gut reaction is, I don't know. Yeah. We've dealt with this a lot in the past. But then the bluegrass thing actually was something that kind of convinced me, not a lot of bass in bluegrass, right?
Yeah, correct.
And that's what we've dealt with so much before. So I think that was kind of a brilliant move on your guys' part. And, one of the things we've talked about is the need for more community events. We have Clive Festival, we have Food Truck Friday, we have things like that. I do see some real potential here, and I certainly hope that you guys are able to build that up, as long as we can do it in a way that's respectful to the neighborhood, right? Because those folks have a right to expect, a quiet setting in the evening when they're trying to go to bed, and not having their pictures falling off the walls because they got all the base that they're having to deal with. Right?
Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
so I wish you luck, and I'm hopeful that this is successful.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're not going to book Glitch Mob, are you?
Nope, not this year.
Maybe the Steel Drivers, Sturgill Simpson would be kind of good. His most recent release was all bluegrass.
Yes, he's definitely on the list.
So hearing no further discussion, we're looking.
Actually, I
Oh,
do
dude.
have a comment. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead, Susan.
That's all right. I'd just like to thank you for your offer of partnerships, and I'm excited to hear about some of the athletic related things with the bike rides or whatever. And I just mentioned that the Clive Community Foundation has learned that NCMIC Insurance plans to drop their Battle of the Burbs experience, which was a kind of a fun run event in August. And that group is looking for some options to kind of collaborate to help promote, but also benefit the Clive Community Foundation. And I could see that being a really good partnership.
We would love to talk to them.
So,
I used to do live remotes for the Battle of the Band or Battle of the or Suburbs. So
okay.
glad
And
you're
I'm
stopping.
partly saying that for the benefit of some of my council colleagues who may not have known that that event was being dropped.
I think one of our big goals next year is to utilize events with the Greenbelt more often. We just did an Animal Rescue League dog jog where they used the Greenbelt. It started in our parking lot, used the Greenbelt, and then came back around after a 5K and had food trucks and whatnot in our parking lot. I think we missed the ball the last 2 years with COVID, not being able to utilize that Greenbelt trail a lot more. And I think that's one of the things we're going to try to take full advantage of over the next few years, if you allow us.
I'm thinking out loud a little bit, but that's what I was going to suggest too, is, we've talked about how do we get more, attract more people on the Greenbelt, get them to be able to, get a beer, get a hot dog or whatever.
Yep.
It sounds like that might be an opportunity as well.
That's definitely an opportunity we're targeting, even for this festival, possibly having a early morning 5K from downtown, one of our bar partners downtown, through the Greenbelt to over our parking lot to enter our event from that way. So we plan to utilize it with a lot of rides, just even some open music nights in our smaller rooms eventually once that's online. It's a big part of who we are right now, and that's why we've been thinking about naming the festival the Greenbelt Festival and making it a national festival. So,
Your Honor, what I would add too, I think this is an example of Horizon folks are investing in their facility. That's part of that plan that was laid out. This is an opportunity for them to continue to monetize that and reinvest in the facility. One of the biggest challenges that we've had over the decades has been just reinvestment in that facility and not seeing it and it deteriorating. And now you have, a property owner here who's investing in the facility. This is another opportunity that, gives them a way to monetize that asset and hopefully continue to reinvest over time. And I think it'll be something that the neighborhood and the city will continue to be proud of going forward.
I agree.
Very good. What we're looking for is a motion
Move
to,
approval of the temporary site plan for Horizon Event Center Outdoor Music Festival.
Second.
and we have a second. Further discussion? If not, would the council please vote? And would the clerk please post that vote?
Gary's doing fine, by the way. He just needed some water. His chief's with him.
Oh,
Good.
Hopefully
Thank
we
you.
have to use our ADR.
Yeah, he's
I think the message is no wooden fences and worry about the neighbors.
100%. I'll put that in the email to him.
that passes by a vote of 5-0. Good luck. We'll see you back with
Thank
some
you.
other plan. Thank you. All right, next up is our ordinance number 1126.
Mayor, council, good evening. We're back for consideration of an ordinance to lower the speed limit on Northwest 142nd from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour. Just to let you know, the materials are on hand. We're ready to go with this once we receive it. Waukee has already published and their ordinance and are ready for us to change the speed limit. We've contacted both the Country Club Homeowners Association as well as the Country Club West Homeowners Association and have received positive support from them for the proposed changes. So with that, I ask you to waive the second potentially and pass the third consideration. So we can
Very
get
good.
this
Any
going.
questions for Jeff, or does someone want to move to waive the rule?
I'll move that the rule requiring that an ordinance be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to this meeting be suspended with respect to ordinance number 1126.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the council please vote on waiving the rules? And will clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0.
Move that ordinance number 1126 be considered placed upon its passage and adopted.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the council please vote on the ordinance? And would the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0. Ordinance number 1126 is declared to have been enacted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
Next,
ask a quick question on that?
Yes.
What will the timeline be for implementing that?
Once it's published, we figure it's probably going to take about a day to put up the stop sign or the speed limit signs. And then a day or two to finish up installation of the RRFBs. So we're shooting right now for sometime the first week of November, hopefully,
Okay.
depending on when the publication is
Do you
finished.
have those in stock, Jeff? Are you waiting on them or?
Well, everything's in stock. We have
Everything's
them
in
here. The
stock?
RFBs have been delivered. They're sitting in our
Just
shop.
got them. Yeah.
Multiple boxes, multiple pieces. We might start putting some pieces together before we get out there. But we're ready to go as soon as we can.
Yeah, the ordinance will be published on November 4th.
So shortly thereafter.
Okay.
The fees we will collect on Stanger alone.
November 5th.
Well, fifth's a Saturday, so
Legal
we can
counsel's
start.
commute, legal counsel's commute is going to be extended
Out of
by
a
30
con-
seconds.
It'll
Out of
pay for
conflict
all
of
of the equipment
interest.
you purchased.
I did defer on legal review on this particular matter out of a conflict of interest. So on November 5th, is that what I just heard?
No, November 7th, probably fifth is
Thank
Saturday.
you.
Your
Coming up.
budget will be
So
blown.
is there any kind of a plan to have, I don't know, a police presence, or will we be kind of issuing, you
need
know, warnings?
Stanger's
We-
license plate number or?
Couple,
Well, I'm sure we'll be doing patrols out there for speed, and we're putting our mobile radar signs north and southbound as well. So that should be a good reminder for you.
I think to Susan's point that is
Yeah.
something we need to do. And as always, I would say, some warnings within reason at the beginning, pull them over, but warnings, and then enough is enough after a certain point, right?
yeah, we'll be putting the poles up for the radar, mobile radar here this week. We'll have it ready. We didn't want to put the signs out there and have them start flashing at one speed limit now and another speed limit. So we'll wait until after the signs are up and then we'll put them in. In addition, all the speed limit signs will have the flags on them, trying to call a little bit more attention to them during the interim period there. So.
Councilor Jenkins' point, our intent is to do, they did a special enforcement earlier this year, and then typically with these kinds of setups, we follow up with a special enforcement right after.
Well, one reason I was asking about it is dredging has commenced on Country Club Lake. And I thought, kind of depending on the timing, there could be a perception that this is something temporary because of that. And for the most part, there's not much of an impact on 142nd. They're dredging and then taking the barge down to Country Club and taking the trucks from there. But I've noticed traffic kind of looking to see what's going on there. So you just don't want it to be confusing.
No.
The other, perhaps we could utilize the communication piece too. Look, the goal is not to write tickets, but it's to reduce speed right there. So newsletter, Pete, all the platforms that you have just to get the word out,
The other audience we need to think about is the walker, runner, bike audience that's moving along the trail there. I think everybody is already pretty cautious when they cross 142nd because of the rise that's there to the north. So I certainly am when I use the trail there.
Right.
We will have probably an opportunity to put up some temporary signage for cyclists, walkers, runners, just so they understand what this signal does and doesn't do. And that they still exercise caution, look both ways. Those vehicles should be stopping when they're crossing, but they're going to lose a fight with a vehicle if they don't watch what they're doing. So,
Like a diverging diamond.
can't speak to that one yet, Councilman. But I wouldn't want to walk across a diverging diamond. Yes, I agree.
Moving right along, thank you for the discussion on that. Next, we have a pay request. This allows an abstention. Would someone like to move approval?
for approval.
Second?
Motion and a second for discussion. Seeing none, would the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4 in favor and 1 abstention.
Has the vote been posted?
Oh, I must have timed out. That's happened quickly that time. Okay, sorry. I've been keeping it refreshed, so
Just say I abstain.
I abstain.
Very good. Thank you. It passes 4 in favor and 1 abstention, as I said. All right, next, Richard, you're here to tell us about Circina Park.
Would you donate to the goats?
I'm ready.
Sticker. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, I'm here to kind of do a check-in with you regarding the status and how we're moving along with Circina Park. I'm happy to report that the developer has completed all their obligations on that piece of land from the townhomes to the south there. So we are now free to really begin moving this project forward. So what I want to do tonight is just give you a little bit of an overview that was presented to the neighborhood last Wednesday night, and then kind of talk about some of the concerns and questions that we heard there, and then kind of talk about what are the next steps to move the project forward. I believe also there's probably there's one resident in attendance here that probably wants to talk following my presentation. So just to familiarize everyone with the site. So this is the site, Westgate Drive, our Parkway, or is it Parkway, is on the west or the left-hand side of this. The townhomes of Shadow Creek are to the south, is on the bottom of the map. And the single-family residential homes are to the north, and to the east is the undeveloped 80 acres that is on the northwest corner of Douglas and Alice's Road. The future Circina Park is this land in between here. It includes one stormwater detention pond, and it'll include future stormwater improvements. These are all obligations to handle the stormwater from the development to the south. So being incorporated in there, mixing that park and green infrastructure at the same time. Just a little bit of background on where we came from and where we're going. So this is something that the city actually started prior to my tenure here at the city of Clive. It was something that was conceptualized as part of this area, the future Alice's Road Park and the future Schuler Pond Park. So the city hired RDG to engage in concept plans for these 3 parks, knowing further down the road we would be implementing them as this area develops. So Circina Park is the first one that is kind of moving along that line from that initial concept stage into will be constructed stage. So you can see here in the top left, that's kind of some of the ways that RDG and the team has started to look at it when this was developed. How do we use this space in a way that's not a full-on neighborhood park, but knowing it's probably going to be more of a greenway that connects then to the east when that area develops, be part of a greenway that then kind of takes it down to Little Walnut Creek as in the future when that develops. Then on the top right is one of the second evolutions. You can see getting that kind of oval, kind of central park space there, the pond on the right-hand side, and then the kind of the green areas on the left-hand side. That was a concept that we debuted out with residents here earlier in 2022. We received a lot of the comments from residents of what they thought on that. Because we haven't been able to get on the property and do anything else, that's kind of delayed things over the summer and into the fall. So now that we have possession of that property, we can actually start to jump into that. And then RDG was able to really start going. The bottom is just some of the images they've used when talking to the public about what might this look like, you know, how would the land feel, how would the landscaping look, how are we wanting people to, or envisioning people would use the property. Based on all that feedback that we have gotten up to this point, this is what the revised park plan is at this point. So I'll just kind of walk through it real quick. Let's see here. I'm not sure if the mouse shows up. Doesn't show up very well. So the left-hand side, there's 2 bioretention cells. This handles all the stormwater from the townhomes to the south. What's kind of interesting about this site is it actually splits almost right down the middle. The water goes to the left. It goes down into the Shadow Creek 4 pond and then in a Little Walnut Creek. And the water then goes to the pond, then goes to the east down to Little Walnut Creek that way. So this is kind of a ridge in the middle of it. So that space in the middle there, that central lawn is designed to kind of be that open space, not overly programmed. Having a trail network that winds its way through this. So starting at Westgate Parkway, it connects to the west side of the street where Amanda talked earlier about the 8-foot wide recreation trail on the west side of Westgate, ties into there. kind of weaves through the bioretention cells into a circular kind of walking loop around that central green lawn. There's two neighborhood connections here. One says kind of secondary entrance on the north side of that goes up to the single family homes. That has been connected from the street to the property line as part of the development. And the same thing on kind of the southeast, kind of that pink, kind of left-hand side of the pond. There's a connection already in between two townhomes to connect to that townhome development. And then future will be to connect the trail to the east when at that point that area develops as well. For the most part, very passive park recreation area. Looking at small areas of a couple play elements, kind of in that circular purple, green, tannish area there right next to the pond, potentially a small open air shelter that could have a couple picnic tables under it, and some landscape areas, and then a few nodes for people to be able to fish in the pond. So here's just kind of some precedent images that we put out to people at the meeting last week. So not a huge shelter. We don't want people to think that we're putting out a big, 80 or 100 person picnic shelter. This is a spot where you could have a small family gathering, maybe just a picnic or just to hang out and get out of the sun. Not a full playground, probably looking at maybe a swing or two, maybe some kind of informal scramble areas for kids just to have a little bit of play experience, but not your typical full playground experience. And then here's kind of some of the precedent images they use for like what is the landscape going to look like. So all of the path areas will have a mowed shoulder. That central green area would be entirely mowed. And then around the edge of the park, there'd be a 4-foot buffer of mowed grass so that all the adjacent property owners would not have natives flopping over onto their property. But then the rest of it would be kind of made up of some of these native plants that you're seeing here for the bioretention areas, the edges of the pond, and then planted in some kind of formal landscape ways around that little shelter playground area. So kind of on to the neighborhood meeting. So October 19th, the HOA at the Townhomes of Shadow Creek there was kind enough to host us in their kind of community building. And so we had a fantastic turnout. Well over 60 people attended that. And RDG had Colt McDermott as well as Greg Pierce, their stormwater engineer, there to kind of walk through the slides that we walked through and then to answer all the questions and concerns that people had. I'll try to kind of briefly go over this. The list on the right is all the kind of questions, comments, concerns that we were able to grab while we were there at the meeting. Jeff Lucas and Jeff Thielen from my team were there. We were all kind of capturing. Matt was there. I know Councilmember Weaver was there for a while. I think on the left-hand side is my interpretation of what we heard. So we're trying to kind of narrow it down. What are the big concerns? What are the questions? And how do we address all of them? I don't think we're going to be able to make everyone happy here. That's the one thing I think, there's some competing interests and thoughts on what should be where, how it should be, what it should look like. But overall, I think we saw generally pretty good support for the project, a small number of negative comments, but concerns that we need to address and answer and figure out how we can handle that. The big things that we saw were playground and shelter location and the details of that. So concerns, is that the right location right there, just to the west side of the pond? Should it be put somewhere else farther to the north? Location of the trails throughout the site, there was multiple comments wanting the trail farther away from their house, which then puts it closer to someone else's house. So I think that creates a little bit of a difficulty for us, but we want to try to work to see what we can do to maximize, people that are satisfied with that.
It's not a big footprint anyway.
No, it's not. It's not a huge park. Pond design and function. So one of the things out there with the pond that the way it's been left out there is it's got that sediment forebay and then it's got a pipe that connects between them and it's not entirely connected. So it looks a little bit weird. And then you have the bigger pond. I think there's quite a bit of concern. Is that how it's going to look? It doesn't look the best. Is there ways we can do that to ensure we still get the functionality of why that forebay is there, but still make it look a little better in the final design? Concerns about, mosquitoes, stagnant water, a lot of different things like that. So I think those are the kind of the big four things that we heard, and obviously lots of other things kind of intermingled in that. A lot of questions that we've seen, things we want to try to address. So one of the things that we've done to date, we gathered a big email list. So anyone that was there had the opportunity to put their name on an email list. We've created a project website on the city's main project website, put all these slides up there already. And then one of the things we're doing is we're walking through all these questions, concerns, comments, and we're going to put together a frequently asked question on that webpage as well. So people can go to that and see the answers. We're also going to use that email list as a communication tool as this project progresses from here on out. Here's your next opportunity to come and talk. There's a lot of steps that I'll outline here in a bit. Who do you need to contact? Jeff, myself, Jeff Thielen as well. I know Matt's gotten some, I'm sure Ted, and maybe some of you have got some different comments. We're getting lots of questions, comments, phone calls, emails. So we're trying to address them as much as possible. But we want to use that website as a kind of central hub to answer all those questions. Because if we get a phone call or an email from someone, we want to make everyone know what the answer was to that. So we don't keep repeating ourselves over and over on a lot of those things. But slowly working through that and getting to the point of kind of proceeding on what the next steps are.
Well, before you go there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for that website, then within the projects, is this going to be something that's easily found right directly under project? So you don't have to dig down 10 levels into the website to be able to find it, so we can point people easily to that?
So it's placed on the front page of the city's website, that major projects and plans tab.
Okay.
You just click there. It's the first one under city projects. Okay. One of the things we've also done too is we got all those email addresses typed in. Jeff sent them out an email here on Monday, letting them know, thanking them for all their comments, let us know how to reach out, and then had that link as well.
One other point about that page, there's a search function that is just for things that are posted there in that list of major private, public streets and other plans the city has. So you're not putting your search term out there to Google the universe. Right. It's just going to narrow you in on those specific items. So anytime people search Circina, that'll be the first item that pops up for them.
So kind of next steps from here. So we're taking the time to review all the comments and concerns and to revise the plan based on what we feel like we can accomplish and try to balance out the needs of kind of some of the competing interests. Once we get to the point where we feel like we have a final design and site plan, RDG will finalize that and get that submitted to go through the city's site plan process. That will then trigger 3 different reviews that will ultimately end up on your desk. So the Parks and Recreation Board, the Plan and Zoning Commission, and finally the site plan for approval with the City Council here. We will be sure to notify everyone that we have received contact information for about those ahead of time. And then ultimately, if we get to the point where you approve that site plan, we'll be ready to put that out for bid early in 2023, with hopefully construction wrapping up in late 2023. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Additional questions for Richard?
I do.
Susan?
I noticed there was a question about seating area, and as I was looking at the photos, I don't have a good sense for what's planned for seating for parents watching their children. Somebody wants to come read a book and enjoy the lovely scenery. Can you explain?
Yeah, so, we surprisingly, that was one of the biggest questions we got. What are these seating areas? What are they going to look like? We kind of just got to the point, they're park benches. Park benches will be strategically placed throughout the site, where exactly what you said. How do you maximize the ability to sit and watch kids, relax along the trail loop or along the pond? So one of the things that we'll be able to do is probably strategically work with people as the park gets developed before we finalize those locations and say, hey, we're getting close. What do you think about these locations here? And we can kind of work with the neighborhood and the residents to come up with those.
We have the shelter area with some some seating there too. So if you want to sit under shade, and then I think the playground area is near that shelter area, so you can, as a parent, sit under the shelter and watch kids play. I think that's the concept, at least.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I thought I had it for a second. Apologize.
Is there the potential for some people to dedicate benches? I know I've appreciated the chance to do that for Bob along the Beltway.
100%. It's probably
might encourage that.
It's something we'll probably actually put out to the email list that we have for the project to see if anyone would be specifically interested. Since it's not an unlimited amount of park benches that we'll put out there to see, but those residents are interested in doing maybe something like that to help improve the park.
What do you anticipate maintenance from Parks and Recs staff to be on a regular basis?
So it's one of the things that we will do and work with RDG on is actually put together that maintenance plan of what it's going to take from a regular basis. There's a few different things that we'll be kind of looking at here. There's going to be the regular check-in on the playground materials to make sure they meet all the standards. There's going to be the mowing that goes into the mowing contract. There's going to be the stormwater checking in with those facilities there. Periodically, probably every few years, digging out the kind of the forebay on that, making sure all the bio retention cells and the plant material in there is getting established. So it's probably from first couple of years will be a little bit more, but then as this kind of goes, the maintenance should level out pretty far.
From playground materials, you looking at, are you looking at the rubberized structure we have right now?
Yes.
Looking at wood chips then, are you?
Yeah. So what we're looking at right now is that area can fit four small little play elements, and we're looking at it being a fully rubber ADA surface.
Can you talk a little bit more about the pond and kind of like firming up the shoreline and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so the way that we have kind of gotten the pond from the developer was according to how the site plan is. They did a nice job of mucking it out, getting the erosion matting along the shoreline down by the water line. But we've just asked them to go in with just basically a ground stabilization. We didn't ask them to go in with any of the native seeds or things like that because we knew that we'd be coming right on their heels with the park redevelopment. So what we'll be doing is working with RDG to develop the right specs for native plantings along that shoreline, with a couple areas where there'll be maybe some rock scrambles where people can fish along the shoreline of it as well. But anticipate it'll be almost entirely native vegetation that really discourages geese from coming down there and then wandering all over and creating a nuisance.
And Richard, there's also the shallow shelf there that was established along the shoreline to prevent unintentional young people walking in and getting into water to be too deep, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Stagnation mosquitoes were a concern, Richard. Any plans on aeration for that or regular spraying to eliminate that or reduce that threat?
Yeah, so what we'll do with, and what we've kind of, the plan we're taking with all these stormwater ponds up in the Shadow Creek area, we want to do an initial kind of wait and see. What do they look like after everything is kind of stabilized out there? One of the things you see a lot with these ponds the first couple of years, they might have extensive algae growth or things like that maybe we do need to spray until things get stabilized. And then what we'll do is we'll work to do water quality tests to see what's in that water column. Are there things that we can work with neighbors to reduce? Maybe they're throwing a lot of phosphorus on that really beautiful bright green grass that we could ask them to reduce that would actually reduce the algae on it. Are there things we can do without resorting to that? Because if we resort to some sort of mechanical aeration, we have to run electricity out there. We have to maintain that, and that runs several $1,000s a year alone, in addition to the capital cost on that. So we want to see if there's ways to do that without that being the case upfront. But we'll certainly be willing to admit if we get 5 years out and we're just struggling with the water quality there, and mechanical aeration is the right tool, then was certainly something we'd look at.
Any other questions here? And we've got citizen that has a few comments. If you'd like to come forward and give us your name and address for the record, please.
Cindy Carlson, 17459 Baxter Drive, Clive, Iowa. Anything further to do? Okay.
That does it. Tell us.
I was at that same meeting that Mr. Brown was at. I didn't hear exactly the same things. I live, oh, can we still have this up? Well, that'd be great, because I didn't come with a laptop. I'm an old person. I'm one of the over 55 people in the area on the south side of the park. That whole development was, we have no children, none, living on the south side there in Courtyards of Shadow Creek. So how does this work? Oh, I use the mouse here. I'm sorry, I just don't know how this works. Okay, first of all, we got from the builder, it worked well. He got another $40,000 a lot out of us to live back into the park. This was the initial. Oh, you can show that? Oh, cool.
Nothing but the best, Cindy.
What was that?
Nothing but the best.
I'm old. I'm really old, so I don't know this new stuff. Okay, this was what we initially got from the builder. And I am a second owner. I'm the first resale in there. The people that bought the house I'm living in right now were there 17 months and moved to Florida. So I did not build my house. I did not choose the lot. I did not choose the plant. But it was the first resale and everything was sold out. I am right here. And this is what the builder presented to us as where the walking trail would go. And all these houses here had to pay, well, these had to pay an extra $40,000 a lot to back up to the park. These here had to pay 30. So that's just the history of what we were presented. You have no liability, no knowledge of that. I'm just presenting that. What we got next, we have what we call a transition team, because we didn't have a board yet. The development isn't even 3 years old. So we had a transition team headed up by Larry Marvin, who is a retired realtor. I'm a realtor as well of 30 years and still licensed, in fact. Larry got a letter from Jeff Lucas, sent it on to all of us on November 2nd, 2021, and said, additional information from Jeff Lucas. He shared this with Chuck Ehlers, who's a neighbor down the way that was somewhat involved because he didn't want a walking path behind his house. So it states here, wanted to provide you a quick update with the Courtyard Group regarding park land to your north, namely Shadow Creek Landing. And it said they approved a professional services agreement with RDG Planning and Design, a local firm. This agreement moves the park forward with construction plans, bidding, ultimately the construction of the park. Here's an estimated project timeline. And it was all 2002 early. We all do know that our builder did not hand things over till July. So that was by no fault of the park committee that it didn't get started when I thought, but this was the letter we got, whatever. So here's the layout that we received with that letter in November of 2021. Oh, I put a little X where I go. Sorry. Okay, so this this went to this. So we figured we probably paid for something we weren't going to get, but that was a different deal. So this, again, I live here, I live right here. So we were pretty excited about this plan that we got in November of 21. Westgate is here, and the walking trail through the single family homes and the public street of Clive was up here. The walking trail that went through our neighborhood on private streets that have bylaws stating that owners and their guests can park in their driveways, and the extra parking only. They do not indicate that we can even park on the street, much less anyone else that might come to our development. So it started out here. Chuck Ehlers, who was not happy about this plan, lives right here. He did not want to have this park behind him. He raised that concern right away, and it was dropped in the final plan. So he's pretty happy about that. And we all are for him. It was supposed to have kind of dividing up the area, north and south, kind of sharing the green space with us. It was coming through like this to the pond, and then have a circular area here, circular area here. So we'd have some interesting walking paths. We weren't just going in a circle over and over. We have a lot of walkers in our neighborhood. Old people walk a lot. Anyways, and we have a lot of dogs in our neighborhood. So we thought this was pretty cool. It had an open thing here, lots of greenery. This pond over here, it's been there. I watched them dredge it this past summer. A lot of water in there. I was guessing it was 18 feet deep. Mr. Brown clarified at our neighborhood meeting last week that's actually over 20 feet deep. So we thought this is what we're getting. I had tried to contact Mr. Brown last year, didn't return my calls. I contacted Mr. Weaver. He got him to contact me. He did not indicate direct answers on some of my questions, like would there be a shelter house? Would there be barbecues? Would there be bathrooms? A lot of things that when something's right behind your house, you kind of would like to know. So then when we did get communication, he said to me, we're going to send this out for some revisions. Didn't say what. He said, we're hoping RDG will have this back to us early August. Might have that in here, but he knows he wrote that letter. And that we should probably be able to get together with you by end of August. And we'll send a letter to everybody. We'll put signs up in the park. We'll make sure everybody's aware of it, and we will share our details with them. We said, great, we look forward to it. We understand it was delayed by RDG by no fault of Mr. Brown, from what I understand. In August, wasn't September, so we got a letter. I got a letter, just right here. Oh. We got a letter here that came to us approximately the 16th or 17th. I don't see a date on it, but it said that the meeting was going to be on the 19th. And I know it was in my mailbox a day or two before. And we're looking at this, and we're going, yeah, that's the park. What we did not see at that time was this. This was the revision that they made without, I'm sure Mr. Ehlers might have known because he was protesting having the walking path by his house. We were not, and I didn't go out of town, I didn't go on vacation. I lived in this neighborhood the entire time from when we got the initial plan to this plan. And we're going, where did this come from? We didn't have meetings, we didn't have input, nobody that I know. Maybe Mr. Brown can show the people that he did have. We do know that the people that lived up here on the north side in the single family homes had several meetings with each other discussing what they did and did not like about this plan, but I don't know how they got the plan because we didn't get the plan until 2 days before the meeting. But looking at it, we were like, wait a minute. Entrance to the park is the same. Those were put in by the developer. The playground was supposed to be up here. Once again, in our over 55 neighborhood, we have people ranging up to the age of 86. We have no grandchildren. Well, no children, and grandchildren are real. Mr. Brown has stated that park is looking for ages 2 to 12 as their main focus. The grandchildren we have, if you're 86, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, maybe great-great-grandchildren could be too.
But for clarification, the park isn't just for your houses, right? It's
No.
for greater than just your neighborhood. And in even the north or the south, we're wanting folks to come from east to west to travel through the green belts and travel through the bike trails.
Right.
We build parks for communities.
Oh, and it's gonna go beyond here too.
Absolutely.
People every day walking through.
Yep, and that's the plan.
And we're happy to have them walk through.
But kids too, right? There can be kids that walk through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're on their scooter
Yep.
unsupervised, zipping through our neighborhood.
You bet.
So we're not
Weaver
proposing
kids.
The children thing, but to move the park from here, where it was on the last plan we got, all the way down to here, without anybody knowing what, and I left another message for Mr. Brown this past week, did not get called back. But Mr. Lucas did call me the day before the meeting and spent about 20 minutes on the phone. He was more than cordial to show me verbally where things were going. So I had a little heads up when I got into the meeting. But I guess one of the questions most of our neighbors are asking just on our side is, what was the reason for moving the park from where most of the kids are over, backing up to the senior citizens and backing up to a 20-foot deep pond? Was there a major reason to move that park to an area that might have more?
Richard, do you want to address that so we can, your thoughts on
I've got a
that?
lot of questions you could address.
And RDG did cover this in the presentation that night of why they moved the playground.
Oh,
closer to the
I never
park.
heard that. Why did
Oh,
they
I
move the
definitely
playground?
heard it. Yeah,
Why did they move the playground?
to create a better experience for when you're sitting in the shelter closer to the pond. I mean, I know that's what I heard. And Richard can speak to it better than I, but I was there that night. I remember hearing that.
Do you want to go ahead and throw the plan back up there? Yep. Okay, so maybe just try to really quickly address that. So some of the initial comments that we had heard back when we initially went out in the meeting earlier this year was that rather than having these kind of playground elements maybe on the periphery or the edges, that might make sense to have it a little bit more concentrated there on the edge of that central lawn there. So that's why in working with RDG, they drew it up like this way. So having some views of the pond from that shelter, but then having just a few small play elements surrounding the edge of that.
But to the north there where Cindy was saying that the original plan was, is that our property? Or why would it
So,
been originally planned?
I apologize. Oh, there. Okay, the mouse is working just a little bit, so I'll be very delicate with it so I don't lose it. So originally, this neighborhood connection goes up here. They originally had planned for it right along the edge of it, up against the property boundary here, right along these bioswales. A couple of things occurred there. We heard quite a bit of resistance to having it right on the property line, but also too, the size of what we need for stormwater detention there called for by the site plan for that development needed to be larger. So we needed as much space as possible there for those bioretention cells. So you can see that they do take up quite a bit of a size there on that west part of the park.
Why not the north side of the park
For
for the playground?
we're reacting to what we heard from the residents and people that came out to those meetings.
Who's meeting? Because I never was invited to.
When did you move into the house?
I bought the house in May of 2021.
Do you know when that meeting date was? I don't have it offhand. And I know I sent it to you when I emailed you as well.
Richard, I have a question about the play elements
Yeah.
themselves. You know, you talked about how they're going to be not like a swing set and a slide and, you know, like the
Yeah.
plastic kind of slides.
So here, see this picture here? So these kind of four top of the right are kind of the scale that we're thinking. So smaller and play elements, maybe a log climbing structure.
And you were saying like 4 or 5 of these.
Yeah, only 4 fit in that space around the kind of the west edge of that proposed shelter area.
Okay.
I would say I like that natural playground area. Urbandale's done some of that, you know, and it's pretty cool. Aesthetically, putting beside the houses and all that, aesthetically, I really like this design. I get it. If your focal point is the pond and, you know, some of the fishing, and we've all asked for that, more of that recreation throughout the communities, you're going to naturally want some type of seating area and play area overlooking that pond. It's a beautiful view, right, of the water. Everybody wants water. They all want to be along the water. So unless we change that pond, I really like this look aesthetically. I understand your concerns. The problem with such a narrow space is, again, you change the pond, impossible. You can't, you push it north, you push it south, you're going to have the north complain, the south complain. You kind of put everything central like this. I do think aesthetically, as a homeowner, it's going to add a lot of value to your homes. Everybody, I think you're a realtor. I mean, I think that's what folks are asking for is,
Senior citizens are not asking for a playground behind their houses.
But this was planned.
Not where that park is right now. It was planned over by the single family homes with children.
Well, this slice has always kind of been here. You know, and there needed to be more. I mean, I'm not going to get a tit for tat, but there needs to be, if you bring up your area, there needs to be more green space in your area if you're not going to give the park area to the north. It's got to be a one or another, because we're trying to do that in a balanced area throughout the communities. And I disagree with you, and I'm not a professional realtor and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn, but it is green space adds to homes value. I just anecdotally, I know that. And it's told you in every newspaper, magazine, anything you read when you talk to realtors. So I think this will add a lot. I think we just need to have an open mind. Children aren't evil. They're good if they play through there, and it's fine if they interact. It's a good addition to the neighborhood. I really like it of where staff went. I still understand your concern, but some of it is balancing that from up here.
Where's the balance when that big green circle at the top and the big green peak thing at the top are backing to single family homes, and the playground area is backing to senior citizen townhomes?
Well, you have green space there before you get to the play area. Yeah.
I just heard him say tonight.
But you can't move it up there because you still don't have that aesthetic look over a pond. Everybody wants to be on the pond. If we could do that across the street, which we're working on here, homes or no homes, it's where you want to be. You want to overlook water, right? That's where everybody
You ever
gravitates.
smelled the water in that pond?
No, we're gonna.
I'm just asking.
Well,
this is not a pretty pond like Country Club or.
it's not a
anything
pretty
else.
piece of land right now, but it's going to be.
Okay, so that little circular area to the left of the pond, that's a retention area, and Carolyn Hamrock, who lives right behind it, and she knew it was there when she bought her house. We all knew we were getting a park. We were all excited about the park. And then we were like, what? Playground equipment right behind us. But let me go on to a couple other things that are of a concern. Out of the Clive ordinance number 576. It states, and this stopped us from having use of our pool at the Shadow Creek courtyards 2 years ago because supply elements, we couldn't get fencing materials, we couldn't get locking gates. We had no use of the pool in 2021. So this ordinance says that if you have a swimming pool, you have to have at least a 6 foot fence around it. You have to have a locked gate. What's the difference between, in our swimming pool in our townhouse is 3.5 feet deep. 3.5 feet. We were kind of surprised, but that's as deep as it is. And they wouldn't let us open our pool. Supposedly they blamed it on Clive. And I'm not firsthand to that. They wouldn't let us open our pool because we didn't have this 6-foot fence. We didn't have locking gates. And then when we got the fence, they said, well, your gates have to open a different way. We lost a whole year of using our pool because of the gates. So what is the difference between having a 3.5 foot deep pool and having a 20-foot deep pond, which is all sludgy on the bottom? Mind you, I sat and watched them dredge that pond this summer. And the smell was so horrific. I called neighbors and I said, don't go outside. And they said, no, we're in our house for like a week. The smell was enough to gag you.
Cindy, I don't think this pond is meant for swimming. It's meant for
No,
fishing.
but
It's
if you
not a
think it's gonna be
recreational pool.
Picturesque, and you're gonna sit. First of all, we were surprised we were getting a shade area. We did not hear that we'd have anything that would have barbecue grills. We did not hear. Now, Mr. Lucas, the day before the meeting, told me there'd be 2 picnic tables, and he wasn't sure about the barbecue grills. Well, the next day when we had the meeting, Mr. Brown said there'll probably be 4 picnic tables, and this would be called a shade area. And we're all looking at each other like, what's a shade area? That is probably not a clubhouse, shelter house kind of thing. And from what Mr. Brown had said at the beginning of the meeting is we want all of you to be able to look out through the park and see a beautiful view. We're going to see, well, what he showed there, tall, peaky things. And then this is a barbecue grill. And we all know you can't clean a grill right after you use it. It's too hot. And so the people that will come and use the park aren't going to clean it. I don't know who is. I'm certainly not going to. But that's a concern too. Are we going to have responsible people not to take hot cinders and put it near this prairie grass, which is probably going to be very flammable because prairie grass is often dry and pretty and that type of thing. And do we have the potential of a fire hazard being that close to the barbecue grills, being that close to that park and having people say, oh, we'll just leave it. We don't live here anyway. Do we know that these, and we had asked that night, are we going to have regular maintenance people? And we're told 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I don't know if they're going to clean the grills. Is it necessary? And I had conflicting views. Mr. Lucas was more than pleasant to talk to the day before. I said, what about trash? What about everything else? And he said, well, we want this park area. We want it to be a walking thing. We want people to start walking and keep walking. He said, we don't really want them to stop. We're not doing this park to have a stopping point. He said, we'll have this little shade thing because I had this by then. I didn't know the scope of it or size of it or location specific. He said, we'll have a little shade area that if you get really tired walking, you can sit and have some shade. Well, the next night when Mr. Brown presented it, he said, we envision you having family events and all kinds of events going on in this. Okay, let me point out one thing. We have no toilets there. All of our houses have toilets, but I'm not letting people in. We have no water source there. We have no electricity there. So if we're going to have a shelter shade area that's going to invite us to have gender reveals, which we had at our clubhouse last year with fireworks, not me, but someone else, that we're going to have birthday parties, that we're going to have who knows what. You get a little 3-year-old, I don't have one, but maybe some of you have, and he has to go to the bathroom. He has to go to the bathroom now. Are we going to be having people peeing in our park? And again, I know someone personally that was arrested for indecent exposure in a park because his kid had to go. So then his problem was he decided to go too. That was a little bit different. He was arrested, not this park, obviously. So is it going to be feasible if you're having major events, if you're going to encourage people to spend a lot of time? Mr. Lucas said, no, it's a stopping point. Mr. Brown says, yeah, we hope they spend a lot of time when you don't have a place to go to the bathroom.
Well, could you, we normally allocate 3 to 5
Sorry,
minutes. So if you could sum up, that'd be
I'll wind
helpful.
it up
And then we'll ask Richard to make sure that you know how to contact if you've got follow-up.
The safety issue, the pond, the fence, we won't have a fence, et cetera, et cetera. The private streets, we all have private streets. And I talked to Mr. Merton yesterday in code enforcement, and he, with Clive, He did confirm that we can have cars towed. It's our streets. If people, and we're in our bylaws, we're not told that we can even park on our own streets. It has to be in our own driveways, it states, or it has to be, in fact, I have the bylaws with, or it has to be in, it has to be parking rights, use of parking spaces, guest parking, parking on private streets. So we have bylaws. We're updating our bylaws right now. These were the builder's bylaws, which ours are probably even tighter. So if they're coming in and we're ending up deciding to tow cars, I hope that's not going to be an issue, and it may not be. But on the north side, they can park for free and not be towed because it's a city of Clive street. So that's just one thing that we have concerns. If people get hurt on our private streets, do we have liability? If there's a car accident, we have a lot of, understandably, emergency vehicles in our area. Myself, by ambulance last May to the hospital. Will emergency vehicles be able to get down our streets if we have outsider parking, which we're not supposed to have, but if we don't have them towed, how are we going to enforce it?
Well, let me suggest at this juncture, if you, it might be helpful just to reduce, your concerns to writing, email it to staff, and then they can go through point by point by point, and you'd have a response in writing, so there's no misunderstanding or ambiguity. So if I could ask you to.
One quick last thing. I think you're probably all aware, because you know the area, we do have coyotes. And we see them, and I get the remnants because I'm very close to the bike path. When they kill something, they don't usually sit me there. They take it away, but I get the blood on my patio. And I really do, twice this week. And the geese, tons of geese. And where they tend to go is they go from the big pond down to what we call the Mounts Pond. Janet and Ed Mount live down here. And it's kind of just swampy like area. And the ducks go right back and forth. I've taken many photos where they're walking right back and forth or flying. That's pretty much their flight plan. They don't go north here. The goose droppings are horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Will this be a health issue for the children playing on the playground? If not, because we don't have water, we can't clean it up. My neighbors get their power washers out to clean up almost daily, and I'm not exaggerating, the goose poop. So is that going to be an issue? And just speaking as a realtor, I've never once in 30 years of being licensed as a realtor, and I'm still currently licensed, had anyone ask me for a retirement home backing to a playground. They usually say, we've been there, done that, give us a nice, quiet place now. So just speaking from experience, I just want to share that. Sure, they want to back to the park, but I've never had anyone ask for a playground. So my point is, why was this moved? Was it any pressure from the north side? And number two, if you're down by the pond there, will an ambulance or emergency vehicle or helicopter be able to get in there to get these kids out? We have a lot of unsupervised children in our area, a lot of them. It's not my problem, but they're riding those scooters with two kids on them, two little kids, and they're motorized. They're going lickety split. I'm not there to watch them. Their parents are nowhere to be found. And you can ask any neighbor in our neighborhood, are the kids supervised? Well, they're not our kids, but no, they're not supervised. So if they get near a pond or get curious or somebody, throws something in, they want to go get it, will we have the ability, having the playground that quick and having someone talking to someone in the shelter house and doing this and this and this and this, where's Jimmy? Where is Jimmy?
Well,
Where is Jimmy?
I'm sorry, Ms. Carlson. I think we've got the gist. Again, if you could put that in writing and email it to us.
That would give me a response.
You could send it to me and I'll make sure it gets to staff. Absolutely.
Because we have a concern. We don't want to have any children harmed in this. So.
And I do have one question for Richard. Can you provide her with an anvil for the coyote? Could you see if you can do that?
Well, if you can figure out the coyotes in her area, I got coyotes in my area. And the Lincoln Street has coyotes, but we got coyotes everywhere and geese everywhere and ponds everywhere and kids everywhere.
They're everywhere, but when you're building a park, and you have a choice right now to locate things, to keep children further away from those things. That might be the time to make the choice. But I did want to say again, I never was invited to a meeting until this one on the 19th of October. So I had no.
Well, thank you for sharing your concerns with us again.
Yes, thank you.
You can email
I will make sure that staff answers and CCs me on it.
Did you have anything further on 16
I do not.
Would you like to tell us about the aquatic center?
I will just a little bit, but I'm going to let Austin do most of it. So, while I'm getting the presentation up, I want to thank Austin. While this wasn't his first year working at the Clive Aquatic Center, this was his first year as the aquatics manager. I just want to thank him for all the work that he did, getting a team put together and getting, 60,000+ people through this facility over a 90+ day period. So if I can figure out how to this. All right, there we go. All right, good. I'll turn it over to Austin. There's a couple different slides where we'll kind of tag team this, but I'll turn it over to Austin. Thank you.
All right. I think they say the saying is save the best for last, right? Thank you, Richard. But like you said, my name is Austin Tassler. I'm the recreation coordinator here. Good afternoon, Mayor Edwards and City Council. Thank you for saving the best for last. Like I said, I'll be covering our 2022 aquatic season report. So starting with attendance, we were open 84 days. We closed 1.5 days due to weather. Our attendance was 56,329, up from 2021. Again, with all of these trends typically rely on weather. So we did have a fairly warm and dry summer, which was great for us. Highest attendance June 20th, lowest was June 3rd, and our daily average was about 670. So kind of our aquatics attendance trends were up from the last 5 years since 2016, and hopefully we'll continue to keep climbing on that. So like Richard said, I'm going to pass over to financials to him real quick.
So what you have here is the last 6 years of trends related to financials with the Aquatic Center. So one thing I want to point out here, what's a little bit wonky, these is your revenue and expenditures across fiscal years, not across pool seasons. So that's why you're going to see such a discrepancy in the current fiscal year. So we incurred a lot of the expenses in the first part of fiscal year 23, but we don't get a lot of the revenue until next spring when we start to sell the pool passes for the 2023 pool season. One of the things that we're working with Elizabeth and her team to see if we can get this broken up through the pass and going forward by pool season to better show how that kind of works out for each pool season. But you can kind of see here, one of the big trends that we're continuing to see is an increase in expenses. We had to increase lifeguard wages right at the beginning of the season because we were just struggling to attract lifeguards because everyone around us had increased their wages so much. In addition, I think it was mentioned, you can go out and flip burgers and a lot of other things for $15, $16, $17 an hour, and you don't have to worry about saving people in a pool. So the competitiveness of that has really driven up the costs that we've seen to operate this pool. But Austin did a great job of getting people in here, and we had a full team and we had 0 shutdowns because of that. But you can see here that we had that big gap right now, but when we look at this next fall, that won't be that big a gap. And hopefully by that point, we'll have switched that over to its pool season, not just a fiscal year.
So pass sales sold 3,102, again, up from 2021. The pass sales breakdown is right below that. We did have a total of Clive passes used at West Des Moines was 8,516. Total West Des Moines passes that were used at Clive was 5,396, a difference of 3,120. We do end up paying them out, and then that sometimes fluctuates. Last year, we also paid West Des Moines. So this year we did pay them $12,480. We're also in our second year of our partnership with Urbandale. So Urbandale pays the difference between the resident versus non-resident passes that we sell, and will be paying us out $24,270 for that. And our top passes sales by city are Clive, Urbandale, Grimes, Johnston, and Waukee. Program attendance. We switched things up a little bit, time frame wise. So we had lap swim and water walking, again, up from 2021. We had 3,212. We did our annual pooch plunge. We had a few that didn't show, but definitely we're going to be opening that up. Ran it a little bit different this year. We had several Clive businesses that are dog related come in. They supplied shampoo, treats, doggy bags, that kind of fun things. So vendors like Petco, Bon Appetit, Style and Paws, Zoom Room, and Just Paws Gourmet. So just trying to up that level a little bit. Had a great turnout. Dogs were having a good time. Toddler Time is a under 6 program that we offered before we opened. So we don't have the older kids getting too wild. So we just opened the leisure pool. We opened 2 more days of that. Increased our attendance there. We had 2,199, 218.21. This year we offered a new program. We had stand-up paddleboard fitness. That's that bottom middle picture that you can see there as they're stretching it out. Offered 3 mornings, and that was a registered class. And then we had Water X, which is a water exercise class that we've had for the last couple of years. So again, numbers up on that. And then finally swim lessons. So swim lessons, we had 1,606 kids that we taught this summer, which is a huge accomplishment.
On the toddler time, that's
Yeah.
a pretty big difference from 21 to 22. You mentioned you made some changes in that program.
So we added 2 extra days. So it used to be just Friday mornings, and we opened it up to Saturday and Sunday mornings as well. Swim lesson feedback, we did send out surveys after every session. So 87% of participated rated their instructors to be 4 or 5 out of 5-point scale. 86% that participated passed or saw improvement with their kids' swimming abilities. 92% participated, rated the facility cleanliness a 4 or 5. 85.5 participated, rated their swim lesson experience a 4 or 5, and 84.5 would recommend our lesson programs to their friends and family.
I'll vouch for that too. Bobby and Pete did lessons all summer and the quality of the instruction was exceptional.
Another fun program that was new this year was our Crestview Scholars. The Crestview Scholars are English language learners from Crestview Elementary. The graph shows right there the language that's spoken at their home. These kids were handpicked and traditionally are free and reduced lunch kids at school. So don't have usually the opportunities and abilities to make it to the pool all the time. Most of the kids that participated in this program did not know how to swim or had never been to the pool. And definitely a humbling experience watching them come in. This is so sick. This is great. Have never been to our pool. First day they handed out donated swimsuits. They didn't own swimsuits. Some of them did have their own, but most got donated swimsuits.
Sick being good.
Yes, yes, yes. Very cool. Thank you for the clarification. Yes.
You're really up on it, aren't you?
Yeah.
Got a grandkid now. I got to keep up with that terms.
How did they get there?
So the Crestview Scholars did have busing. So that's one thing I partnered with Mr. Rhodes, the K through 12 PE education curriculum director, and we coordinated with that. So full disclosure though, I have been with other agencies that have done programs like this, but haven't quite had first-class facilities like what we have here in Clive. So to me, I truly think that offering this equitable experience goes a lot further than some other places that I've been. So I do think that was a humbling experience. We had 2 sessions that we did offer. Again, this was 100% subsidy. They attended the first 2 sessions and timeframes from 8:30 and 9 o'clock. We split those kids up. We did 33 and 33, and then 15 and 15 from time level.
Where did that funding come from?
So what?
Where did the funding come from?
We just ate that cost of the instructors. So again, they got bussed in and we just helped them out.
So City of Clive.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then the Red Cross also, we reached out to them for donations. We got caps and goggles. You can see some of their caps and goggles in there. But really as a whole, got to teach from their instructors. You can kind of see a couple of them helping out with the language barriers and whatnot that we had. Helped interpret with that and really helped make that program happen along with our instructors. So we're grateful for them. And then next year, we're looking to hopefully expand this to Clive Learning Academy, and then hopefully getting some sponsors for the subsidy that we cost. Other season highlights. I first always want to thank our parks team. Without them, we would not be as successful as we are each summer. I've worked at, like I said, several other places, and these guys are some of the best. We have almost a 20-year facility, and it looks brand new. And we did not close a single day due to cloudy water like most other aquatic centers have to do in those first couple of weeks, just with opening the pools. Let's see. We have the Lifeguard Olympics. We brought that returned. Again, just a fun, friendly competition between all of our staff, not just the lifeguards, building team building, staff morale, and hopefully staff retention for this next upcoming year, building that fun work environment. We had preseason training with our Clive Fire Department. We covered our EAP, which stands for Emergency Action Plan. In case we did have an incident at the pool, they know their job, we know our job, and how to work together as a team to be successful. We did some swim safety outreach presentations. Bottom right is Nicole. She is our lesson coordinator. She's been here for about 10 years. We're at Urbandale again, talking about how to be safe in and around the water and talking about specific rules when they do come to visit our facility, and how to be safe at the Clive Aquatic Center. We did some updating of our concession offerings, some different items. We outsourced our pizza. We did a Papa John's partnership with that, which boosted sales. And then we also had Thelma's ice cream sandwiches, which is a local company that are pretty solid as well. We did Cool Beads, which is a different brand of Dippin' Dots. You've probably all heard of Dippin' Dots. So Cool Beads were also offered, and those all went over pretty well.
Thelma's is sick.
So sick, so sick. And then teaching lifeguarding class at Valley right now. So this just is a way students can take PE credit and take the lifeguarding class. Again, adjunct teaching. It's getting my foot in the door, hopefully recruiting them and having them come after I teach them to work for the city of Clive. Staffing. So like I said, we did have a great summer. We were adequately staffed, unlike a lot of local seasonal positions, even in the metro. I want to thank my bosses, Jeff and Richard, and then also you guys as the city council that continue to support us, support the facility, and being competitive with our wages, which goes a long ways.
Reeves right there. It looks like.
Say what?
Is that Keanu Reeves right there in the background?
I don't know about that one. Maybe I do spot maybe one of the Weaver brothers. So I can vouch that they weren't always getting in trouble.
Got some goofy looking lifeguards.
We were working. This was our end of the season party. Just trying to, like I said, go out with a bang. Thank them for all the work that they did this past summer. We did work hard at making sure that we were adequately staffed this season. I attended 8 job fairs, including Urbandale, Waukee Middle School, Waukee Wellness Fair, Northwest, Valley's IJAG program, Apex Showcase, Roosevelt, and then our own job fair that we hosted at the Harbach Center. Thanks to the HR team.
Austin hustled hard this year.
Trying. Can't just sit back. We had 116 total aquatics employees at the end of the season. We do always have a few that trickle out during those first couple of weeks, whether they're too busy, having other positions, or maybe just not feeling correct for that position. Lifeguarding is an important job, and it sometimes can be a little intimidating for these young adults going through these emergency action plans and how to provide care and save lives. So some of them bow out in that stance as well. We had a really young team as well this year. We had lots of 15-year-olds. This does make operating a little bit different. We have different standards for child labor laws. Working at the top of the slides is a no-go. They can't work past 9 o'clock. So continuing our department to pivot with those changes and work with those trends. We've also seen a lot of kids, whether our numbers are still looking good, not wanting to work as much, not working that traditional full-time or 40 hours a week. So although we do have quite a bit of staff, they're involved in a lot more activities and clubs and sports and whatever that might be that pulls them away. So we're not always that first. So we'll continue to work with that. A lot of those pictures there are from our lifeguard Olympics. So you can see we had the champions top right, but a few goofy
We're not
pigs.
happy about that.
So, okay, that's fair. That's
I
fair.
think they finished second or third.
Hopefully they better be coming back so they can have redemption then. So it's important that we continue to foster this fun, enjoyable work culture in order to be successful summer after summer. Hosting things like the Lifeguard Olympics, end of the season party, and having competitive wages are, in my opinion, a great way to build that relationship and keep our employees coming back year after year as we continue to have fun and host a safe environment. So talking about the importance of our lifeguards and our staff, we rely a lot on these young adults during the summer to ensure that we're having a safe place for our community to swim. So anytime a staff would have a rescue or a save, they would write their initials on a little garage door sticky and mark it where their save was at. So we had 76 saves this year or rescues. And like I said, that also kind of identifies our hot spots. As you can see, the deeper water over by the diving board and the drop slide. Again, drop slide adds a little bit more of acceleration into the water, and then the little bit deeper area in our leisure pool are kind of our main hot spots there. What we don't have in addition to our 76 rescues is our 48 first aid incidents, again, bumping their heads, bloody noses, Band-Aids for scrapes, those types of things, also this summer. Facility improvements, we added 2 new lazy river spray features. Those are both in those pictures there that took out the old trees that used to be there. They're kind of falling apart. Our lazy river was painted this fall by our parks team. You see Rick right there painting the lazy river. We save a little bit of money by doing it in-house, and it still, like I said, looks fantastic, and they do a fantastic job. We added a few new lounge trailers. That's an annual purchase. We try to keep up on those. They do see some wear and tear from people dragging them around, tanning oil, all the fun stuff. And then we purchased a new lazy river chemtrol. So a chemtrol is an automated feeder that makes sure that our chlorine is correct, our pH is correct, and it feeds it through. So I'm super excited to have that. That matches all 3 of our systems now, and it's just a little bit more updated.
The UV feature running, the UV accelerator, we built it a couple of years ago. How's that working? Is that maintenance costs? How's that working?
Working great. We do have a 5-year plan to help improve some of those bulbs, those balances, to continue the upkeep on those. Clive was one of the first, I think, to put in UV, and I think that was a solid first step. Same with the splash pad. You guys, Clive has been kind of the leader in those trends. So definitely here to stay, and we'll continue to upkeep those. But Richard's going to talk
investments in that over the years. And I think it shows off in both the attendance and some of your comments as well. So I'm sorry, keep going.
Absolutely. Yep. So Richard's going to talk a little bit more about those future outlooks.
The UV system is almost 10 years old now.
God, is it
really?
God, I feel
It's
old.
probably 8 years that we've had that for sure. 8 or 9. Yeah.
Says something about you, Weaver and Klein.
Right.
You're sitting on the committee for that.
Over the last few years, we've had several discussions. It becomes kind of a perennial topic at your annual strategic planning. How do we make sure we keep this in good shape? How do we make sure it stays relevant in the market that we have here? And how do we keep people coming and make sure that it's a safe facility? And I think, we're going to continue to see wage pressures on finding talent to come out and be lifeguards for us. We haven't got definitive numbers, but one of the things we do with the 28E agreement with West Des Moines is we're supposed to match rates as well as hourly rates for the staff. And we're seeing that they're potentially looking at pretty big increases in their hourly staff hours. And it's really in some ways becoming a very difficult kind of game of keep up. And so we're going to have to try to figure out how do we position Austin to continue to be able to get quality people to work at the pool, but at the same time understand that we want to keep the operating costs under control wherever possible. So we're going to continue to keep working with Matt and West Des Moines to see what's the best way to do that and position ourselves to keep in that kind of race to keep staff for the pool. We approved the 5-year maintenance plan last year. So this is the first year that Austin talked about a few of the improvements. We're keeping on with looking at starting those improvements for year 2, just to make sure all those mechanicals stay up to date. We don't have any downtime because we have a pump broken down, or maybe some of the UV breaks down, or we have an issue with clarity. So we're keeping up on those, and we have the funding to make sure that looks good and operates the way people expect. Austin's doing a great job of reaching out, creating different programs, getting more people engaged in the pool, the stand-up paddleboard classes, the way he's redoing the doggy classes, engaging those Crestview scholars this year, great ways to get more people in here, get new program offerings. One of the things we struggle with is we don't have time to maintain the pool. because we have so much programming going on. So it's kind of a battle on when the guys can get in there and mow things. So really trying to maximize the ability of that, to get revenue, to keep it operating, but also just giving people opportunities with different programs. And then, looking forward to some of the strategic plan items, I know Austin briefly talked about it with the Crestview Scholars, but how do we put together a more formal scholarship program that maybe is independent? It could be on an individual basis or a family basis. So we're doing research, looking at funding options and seeing what maybe a cost would be to do a pool-wide scholarship program, looking at proposed rate increases if we need to cover some of our operating costs. So we're looking at a lot of different things. We'll also have to renegotiate the Urbandale 28E agreement here coming up, since that has expired at the end of this year. Same with West Des Moines. So we've got a lot of negotiations to be doing to keep up to it. That's what we're up to. Also reaching out. Oh, sorry.
Real quick, I'm sorry. Why do we have to tie our wage agreements with West Des Moines? I know it was in the 28E, but as we look to renegotiate that,
I think it's something we'll have to evaluate.
Something we want to look at.
Maybe. I don't know if that, when that agreement was put together originally, there was a thought process that you would have a sharing of staff when you get to a certain time of the year, and you between West Des Moines and Clive, we try to keep one facility operating, whether it was the one on Railroad or Valley View or ours. That really hasn't played out that way over the last 5 years. And that was really the intent of that component of the 28E. So I think that's probably past its time. And that's what we want to look at in the new 28E. And to be honest, does it make sense anymore?
Right.
Because we do have a lot of sharing between communities. You saw the pass holders of how many communities we have that we're getting. Urbandale, the agreement there where they're actually making us whole on the non-resident rate from the city directly. That's also afforded them the ability to forego a facility in their community for who knows how long. And that's something that I want this council to think about. I've been kind of noodling on that. That's, an investment that our residents and our taxpayers have made and are continuing to maintain. Now, we build our non-resident rate to try to be a higher premium, but that's just something that if we're going to have, it's a delicate balance, as Richard's talked about. We want to get, we want to have folks to maximize the efficiency of the facility because we have to have a certain number of lifeguards. But at the same point, are we getting a fair deal on that too, being the host of that? I think we have here recently. It's just what that may look like going forward as we reinvest in the facility that we might need to think about. Don't have a good answer for that today, but Richard and I have been noodling on the one with Urbandale and West Des Moines for a while. Just what's the right balance there that's equitable?
Yeah, and I think balance is the key word right there. Like, you guys are doing a good job. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, but I think you're considering some of these key issues as I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just going to wrap up. I know Austin's got some fun things planned for the 20th anniversary next year. So I think, be looking for some cool events and activities. He hasn't kind of shared those with us yet, so we don't know how crazy they'll be, but I'm sure he's got some up his sleeve. So I'll let him kind of wrap it up with some of the positive feedback we've gotten.
Perfect. So again, we've received lots of great feedback about the cleanliness of our facility, feeling safe while they're swimming, and engaging with our programs. All positive stuff. This has been, I'm going to knock on wood here, one of my smoothest years as far as patron interactions, staff interactions. Maybe it was just they're nice because my welcome home first time back. I don't know. But we want to continue to keep excelling in this. Like I said, I appreciate your guys' support for the facility, for the staff, and our team. So with that, I'll open up questions.
Questions?
I have one.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure.
I enjoyed using the pool a lot this year, and it's especially great to take my grandchildren there. One thing I missed though was finding a good time to do lap swimming. And I wasn't able to do the super early morning hours. So maybe that would have been a good time. Maybe when I would retire, that part time would work, but I've got meetings at that time usually. But there were so many classes, and if you go during the day for a while, there used to be it seemed like one lane was kind of blocked off for that, but the lifeguards didn't keep it clear. There were kids in there all the time. And I wondered, could it happen during the weekend times when they're having the kids swim. Could there be a lifeguard there to just open up the rest of that for lap swimming? That is one area that we're not really handling, is the adults, other than the lazy river walking. So I think we should think about it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I apologize for Bobby and Pete for screwing up the lap swimming. I'm sure it was them.
It was a lot of different kids, and I would just go try to swim around them. I didn't ever complain or anything, but
Mainly yours, but a lot of other ones. Mainly
Yeah.
your kids, but
Yeah.
other ones as well.
Ed, did you have something?
I just want to make a quick comment. I've told Matt this in the past as well, but just speaking as a parent of a couple of the lifeguards there, I was just immensely pleased at your team building that you do there. I mean, when they're working, they're always rotating and they're not really interacting a whole lot, while because they're focused obviously on other things. But the Lifeguard Olympics was fantastic. You had pizza parties, the end of the season party, all those different things. That was a real pleasant surprise, and I know my kids really enjoyed it. And they got to meet other kids from Urbandale and Waukee that are lifeguards as well, and so they created a little bit of a bigger network. So I was just really impressed by that, and I thought you did a great job. So.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's
Yeah,
huge
just-
for retention. to bring
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
Friend.
And Matt,
No
that was my
friendship
point right there. It's all about retention of current employees and attraction of new employees. Look, we all know it's a very competitive market out there for these types of positions. And, they might make a buck or two more at a Wendy's or fast food. But we all also understand that that's not being a lifeguard. And with the excitement of the young people, look, you can work, if you had a choice, a young person, you could work at a fryer for whatever it is, or work at the Clive Aquatic Center and also have those type of amenities like, the Olympics and pizza parties. What can we do to keep these young people and have them talking to their friends? Hey, you need to work at the Clive Pool. It's a place to be. It's great. That's key right there. And I'm certainly willing to make that investment. You don't have to pay them as much. That's a good thing too, because they want to work. They enjoy it. It's a fun atmosphere. That's the key right there.
It's true, but I do want to emphasize that we do have to look at the wage thing.
Wage has to be
I got to
competitive.
get them in first, and then I
Right,
can.
because I can tell you, like, for my kids, it gave them pause, right? Like, well, I can make more over here. And I had to kind of talk them into it. Look, you're going to be outside. You're going to be around a bunch of pretty girls in bathing suits. I mean, what's the downside here, right? So,
Absolutely,
but we have to be, we got to be aware of that.
No
so.
doubt about it.
Yep.
I'd add two things just to kind of divert from those comments. I was trying to censor, but
We can cut that out of the.
there's
recording,
two,
right?
two things I do want to continue. I was thrilled about your Crestview scholars and really want to push that further. I think that's an underserved area, especially with swim lessons and not knowing how to swim to safety all year round, right? We need to give that option to everybody to learn to swim. So increase that. And then also, before we start getting into this maintenance piece and all, I'd really like to see us transition to solar on those roofs. I'm a big believer of it, especially for this facility, right? And so when we're looking at these pumps and things, we need to start buying them that are compatible with the solar systems on those roofs. Again, I've got it on several buildings in my day job. I also have it on privately. You couldn't power that most of that aquatic center by just your off times building credit for your busy times when it then goes against your credits. And so
doing storage options, right?
yeah. I mean, you'll credit so much when you're not using anything, that if we have the right pumps and such, I really believe, plus it's a good message for that area, right? And it will pay off. So I really want to push that for next year, both of those programs.
Councilman, we had a good meeting with our partners at Mid-American earlier this week, and that was one of the items that we brought up as on the near-term horizon that we wanted to continue discussing with them. It's part of what they are sort of surrounded by now. As there's more dispersed solar, they aren't in the business of going and putting it on all of those facilities, but they expressed their understanding that cities are looking at these types of options for many of the reasons you just described.
Yeah, and get away from, well, I'm not a big believer in partnering with Mid-America. I mean, Johnny come lately on this thing, right? They've fought this, people putting solar on for years. So to partner with them now, I'd say no. Because there's private equity groups that will do that at a fraction of what you have to pay for the system, lease it for 6 years, buy it back. Anyways, we can get into that all some other day, but the important piece is to invest in the proper equipment and pumps today as we replace these, knowing it's going to be solar. And so if we're buying pumps next spring and all that, let's invest in the right pumps. So we're not, I mean, I think we talked about this 6 or 7 years ago and it was, we don't have the right pumps. Well, now it sounds like we're buying pumps. Let's do the right thing.
And we're definitely looking at it too. We do have a roof replacement schedule due for the pump house and the main bathhouse. And I think that's going to be Richard and I have already talked about it. That's going to be a good window of opportunity to do this.
Just one other quick thing that, as we we move forward with the Greenbelt Triad project, one of the key components is going to be with our community center over there. And that's going to bring a lot of people in once we get that done right there. And this really is part of the crown jewel of Clive as we continue to enhance that area right there. So I'm very excited about the potential.
Definitely. All right. Thank you.
Thank
you, Austin. All right, we'll now move into reports, starting with Pete.
Well, there's a lot of material we covered tonight that you can expect to see in the newsletter for December. 142nd Street speed limit and that new trail crossing will be an important topic. But I think also with approval from the mayor, all these statistics on the aquatic center are really impressive. I don't think that a lot of Clive residents understand just the sheer volume of people that are there in a very limited number of weeks.
Most pools lose a lot of money for the cities. Ours may not break even, but it's not that far off. It's not the big subsidy you see from most other communities.
Yep. Ned, to what Richard and Austin mentioned, those sales of the pool passes are really important. And I know the parks team spends a lot of time pushing that starting in January. We can add some extra effort to that through the utility newsletter as well. We'll also look forward to getting a bunch of people together for the mayor's tree lighting, which will happen at the very beginning of December. Chamber membership lunch, I sent an email around. If you'd like to attend that, send me the information so I can get one big invite for the city and then get that paid for with a single invoice. Doodle poll for shooting our video that we've talked about. If you haven't replied to that yet, please do. I'll be super flexible. If there are hours that you need to do it after work, if you want to come in early, we'll make it work. But I do need to get that content together quickly. I would like to have that video completed so that we can share it sort of with a Thanksgiving theme, thankful for, grateful for, sometime at the end of November, but that's going to take some time for post. Indian Hills Woods, if you haven't driven by, I went by again this morning. You have evidence there of amazing skill with our operators at Public Works. They have now completed most of the pools coming all the way down to Lincoln. They've also now taken out what used to look like the ski jump, that giant dirt pile where they were pulling material out and then staging it on the north side of the park is now almost completely gone and hauled away. They'll be jumping the road over onto the north side of Indian Hills Woods, where if it wasn't clear before that was always the intention was to clear out that area as well and create additional pools. We have been very thoughtful about engaging with Susan Colby, who lives on the east side there, north of Lincoln, but on the east side there, because historically she'd kind of mowed her yard all the way down into the park. So she understands that that's park ground. It's going to be park ground again, but was really happy to see that we were going to do some work on the erosion control. We wanted to make sure if we were going in there, we weren't going to do anything that might damage any property that she has, and everything's good. So expect to see the big excavators moving. They won't be on Susan's property. They actually be on the west side of the road when they're doing that work and reaching across. Ongoing business visits this fall, they continue to go very well. I've had a very nice meeting with Christy and our friends at Dubuque Bank and Trust, DB&T, that's over there by the Zoom room in Capriati's. And we've got Green State Credit Union coming up. My primary story for them, in addition to answering all questions they have and talking generally about the condition of the city, is focused on Greenbelt Landing. Because not only for that project, but then for future projects as well, we'll be looking for partners to come in and help us out. And we want to keep building up that sort of expectation among all of our community partners that they have a chance to invest in Clive, because Clive wants to have a chance to also invest in them. The roadshow, sort of with the Water Resources Master Plan, you've seen that periodically in my monthly reports through all of 2022. Got another really good opportunity. I'll be presenting on 11/7 to the Des Moines Council of Watershed Management Authorities, specifically there about the success of our soil quality restoration program. And when we come forward at the first November meeting with the water resources master plan update, the state of Clive Water, you'll hear a lot about how that program's going and how it went. Right now, it's just making sure we've got all the expenses exactly right and everything documented. There are no more installations that are happening at this point. Our last one was done just over a week ago back at George Lundberg Park, where we did about 40,000 square feet to finish up our requirements with the contractor and use up that compost that we purchased. Finally, on 11/10, right before our next council meeting, we will have our photo shoot, and I'll have additional details to send to all of you. We'll either be doing those in this room or in the library. I prefer the library just because it's a nice setting there right in front of the fireplace. So, but more information to come. If you can make sure though that you get here for that period of time so we can get your one-on-one pictures taken and also your group shot. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Anything for Pete? If not, Shrikant.
Just a couple updates. Had a Clive Historical Society meeting again. I was able to bring in some outside counsel or, legal counsel to help them kind of figure out what the next steps are for them to kind of expand their reach and redo some of their bylaws and that. So we've got some next steps on that end. So we're moving along there. And then on DART, they had their financial planning meeting. There are potentially some difficult decisions coming for DART with related to expenses versus revenue coming in, right? And City of Des Moines is getting the brunt of those costs right now, but there was some pushback on that, and nothing was stated that they're not going to fund it, but there's also no guarantee that they were. So there was some discussion about what happens if they don't. What are the discussions that need to happen, beforehand, ideally, right? And then the takeaway, I think, was just the city's wanting some more information and clarity on what the new formula will do to their contribution levels. And yeah, Michael can probably fill in some additional.
Well covered. Well covered.
So that'll do it.
Thank you. Ted.
So I did attend the Circina Park meeting, neighborhood meeting. I was only able to stay for the first 30 minutes. So I missed the Q&A at the end. But I did have a conversation with one resident who wanted me to pass along this feedback. So I'm going to pass it along that she is not super happy about the naming of the park. Beyond her own personal, maybe animus is too strong of a word, but unhappiness with our prior mayor. She just doesn't like the idea that any city facilities or parks are named after individuals. Who knows what his reputation will be in 20 years was her statement to me. So she asked that I pass that along to the full council. So I'm doing so. I told her it was an interesting idea and that we would take it under consideration. So, and then I have had a couple meetings recently with the West Des Moines superintendent, school district superintendent, and he will be stopping by sometime here in the next couple meetings from now, I think, to just do an intro and get to know us a little bit. So that hopefully should happen here sometime in the near future. So that's it.
Eric.
Yeah, so CVB Board of Directors, Catch Des Moines, met just a couple of key points here. Revenues up 19% over budget. Also expenses for Q1 are 14% lower than budget. So some good things right there. Marketing has really been off the charts since they've utilized a Flynn Wright, many more digital and social media hits and impressions right there. So those are all way, way up. We've got 332 events hosted. Wide variety of new goal is to book 50% increase in new bookings. So all is well and things going very, very well. Pete, thank you. I just wanted to play the new commercial as well for Catch Des Moines. Hit it. Thank you.
In Des Moines?
Very good. Just a couple of things. I had a letter from the Clive Community Foundation reminding us that the city has 2 slots on the board. And if you can think of someone who would be interested in one of the slots, let me know. Susan fills a non-city slot, but sits on.
You know, one thing about this is we had talked a few years ago when I first joined that group about having 2 representatives from the city. But there was actually some pushback from within the board and the community about any feeling that it was too dominated by the city, you know, that it really is supposed to be an independent organization. And I said, I'd really prefer to just say I'm from the community anyway, even though the city thing kind of happens. So I kind of question whether we want to say there are 2 specific appointments. It seems like, I don't know, one would be
How big
enough
is the board,
maybe, but
Susan?
I don't know. It's got a range.
Okay.
And so there are several openings they're looking to fill, but it might take a little bit more discussion. I just encourage that thought process. And I will tell you, Loretta Seaman was one who was quite vocal about it and feeling like, you know, it kind of feels like the city's here telling us what to do.
And she's usually not very vocal.
But I could see where she was coming from, you know, so for what it's worth.
You're right, yeah.
Well, and again, we could leave it the status quo. We're not mandated to.
Fill them.
But Scott was one who had filled the role. So kind of between the 2 of us, we had 2. I just preferred calling it 1. But we don't have that 1 anymore.
The other thing is that the partnership dinner is scheduled for January 26th. And just as they did last year, it conflicts with our regularly scheduled council meeting on which we have a very heavy agenda. So
Cancel the dinner.
Who's the speaker?
The first sight vision impaired person who has summited Everest.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
I remember seeing
interesting.
that.
So if you could think about that and let me know in the next week or so whether or not you would want to reschedule that meeting week earlier, week later, or do as we did last year and just full speed ahead on our scheduled meeting.
Is it Sheila Holdsworth?
No, I think it's a gentleman.
You just know too that one thing that's tricky with that particular council meeting is we set the public hearing for the max levy. And there is a time frame for when we can publish that in a window. So when Mayor and I were going back and forth on this, I just thought of that.
Does it have to be a Thursday, Matt? Could it be
That's the thing is,
Wednesday?
I would say a week forward is definitely, in my opinion, off the table from a staff perspective of getting the general fund budget presentation ready for you all. What I want to check is we do have the work session the very next Thursday, which typically is the follow-up to budget. We need to look at the timeframes because there's the potential, if you do decide you want to go to the dinner, cancel that meeting and turn that work session into a regular meeting the very next week. But if we can set the hearings in a way where it meets that time frame for that second, what would be basically a 3rd meeting in February for having that public hearing. So otherwise, then we maybe would need to look, is it Wednesday, the day before?
What day would that be?
The 26th is a Thursday. The first Thursday in February, it would be, well, I have the calendar in front of me, but
What about Metro?
anyway, just we need to do a little bit, we'll do a little bit of public hearing math
Metro Waste is
and let you know.
Here's the
third
speaker.
Wednesday.
February 2nd.
Eric
The week after.
Wyenmeyer, the first blind person to reach the summit
Wednesday.
of Mount Everest.
No, the Wednesday before is the 25th, but
Thank you.
At the 3rd Wednesday?
It'd be the 4th Wednesday of
be
the
the
month.
4th, yeah.
Was that a board meeting?
3rd Wednesday is a board meeting for me.
So anyway, just thought about that after we were chatting back and forth about it. And then, so we'll get, my weekly update tomorrow. I'll try to get some parameters on that. Well, Liz and I will chat. We'll figure it out. Matthew and I ran into Matthew. I'm like, oh crap, we have that public hearing that we set during that meeting. So we'll figure it out, depending on the will of the council.
Well, I guess my sense is we missed it last year, but I think if we can make the arrangements, it's good for Clive to be represented at this event.
I agree.
Agreed.
We'll give you some options.
All right.
won't reschedule.
They moved it to Thursdays now. It used to be on a Tuesday
Yeah.
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't ask us.
That's right. We'll tell Jay that when we see.
Yeah, we'll point that out. Susan, what have you got?
Well, at the Walnut Creek Watershed Management Authority meeting, there was a lot of interest in the soil quality restoration project. And I think it's great, but also, as I understand it, there are some potential capacity issues anyway, even for what Clive is looking to do. So we kind of need to be aware as more communities start to pay attention to this,
Capacity in what?
people who want to do it. Right? You can speak to it.
Yeah, so
2 minutes.
it's a win, right? It's a win for Clive. And when you have a win like this, we obviously want to build on the excitement that we've got. We've got a good list of people who have already said they want to do it next year. Does that same audience exist after year 2? Does that audience exist in other communities? These are all things that with careful strategic planning, we can come up with good estimates of what do we have in the future to work with. One of the things that Clive committed to working with IDOLS and our partners at Polk County is that we would share everything that we put together for Clive so that other folks could execute this. That's that partnership posture that Clive always has to bring to the table, especially with all of our other partners in the Walnut Creek watershed. Doing this in Waukee, doing this in Urbandale is what it takes for us to start to see the benefits that all of us at the bottom of the hill need to see as well. So I think that the challenges in front of us are surmountable. I think that we're going to move incrementally so that we figure out how big can we go, given some of the constraints on materials and audience potentially. But going into next year, I feel good, at least from the Clive perspective, that we can pull off another big win.
But isn't there a concern about whether there are enough vendors interested in doing it, that if more communities get involved, that starts to be an issue?
Yeah. Even our own vendor wondered whether they'd try and do 113 like they did with Clive. We also happened to get a vendor who was very much in favor of automating a lot of the application. When Polk City did theirs, they did it with a contractor who did everything by hand, which meant they couldn't take it to the scale that we did. And they also couldn't, it took them much longer to get into the season and complete everything. So they missed the opportunity when you could grow good grass seed. Whereas we did the vast majority of ours with some optimal conditions for getting the overseeding to take. I think that the amount of money that we're talking about here is enticing enough to the people who want to go out there and hustle for it, that we're going to get takers. And I think we also have a vendor now we've treated very well, who will validate that as well. And so if other communities show up with honest intentions and good money, we're going to get the market to respond.
There's a lot of landscape companies out there, I would think.
But it's worth pointing out that we've got a lot of learning that we're doing here in Metro, and Clive's at the front end of it, and we'll share what we know.
To Susan's point, could we be proactive on that? I mean, Ted says there's a lot of landscapers. If you're needing more vendors, let's do an open house to say, we're going to do this more. Other cities are going to do this more. Would you think about getting into this business if they knew it was out there? But over the winter, we do those open houses or something.
And like, there's an investment from those companies as well in equipment, things of that nature. So you don't just start it from scratch.
No, you don't. You don't. But what our contractor this year demonstrated is that with 2 pieces of equipment, if broadcast spreading top dresser, and then what drop that helps you do the perimeters and then things around the eds and other sidewalks, you can knock out 4, 5, 6 of these in a day on a typical size Clive lot. It doesn't take much time then to really start adding it up and getting across a lot of area.
They had it down and they were really good.
Yep, we were fortunate. We had a really great partner in Quality Cut this year. But cultivating those relationships, finding those potential vendors, I'm going to make sure that Quality Cut knows that we'd like them to come and take a look at our opportunities in the future. before they go sniffing around in Waukee or Urbandale or anywhere else, but I think we'll all be able to be successful.
Well, and with Pete about to speak to the Polk County Watershed Management Council,
Yeah.
I expect that interest will continue to grow.
Yeah.
I brought up earlier tonight the news about NCMIC. Maybe everybody was aware of that, but that has been a focus for the Community Foundation as an opportunity to really try to build fundraising around that. So they're looking pretty hard at what to do to replace that. So I hope you don't mind that I jumped in and mentioned it, but he'd already, the Horizon group.
Is
had
there a
already-
rationale for that, Susan? I mean, they've been doing this for 8-10 years now. I mean,
Well, they
event is
kind of
growing.
have
Obviously, there's
evolved.
expense,
It used to be a little different focus, and then they tried to, I think the Battle of the Burbs has been about 3 years maybe.
Yeah.
And they had a target they wanted to hit in terms of participation, and it did not happen. So I'm sure it has been a pretty significant expense in terms of staff time and otherwise. And to not be generating more interest was probably disappointing to them. So anyway, as you have any ideas, the
Good Clive Fest
group
event.
is, yeah.
Yeah, the Clive Running Festival historically pulls between 400 and 500 runners every year, which was equivalent, if not greater than what we were seeing at the Battle of the Burbs. Very popular event. And credit to NCMIC, maybe this was foresight on their part. If they knew this where they were heading, they went ahead and made that very generous investment in Greenbelt Landing with the public art as well. So they continue to be very committed to Clive, even though they're changing speeds here with how they're doing it.
And the last thing is on next Tuesday, I'll be speaking to the State Watershed Planning Advisory Council on behalf of Watershed Management Authorities of Iowa, since I'm still president of that group, to just give them an update. So.
Very good, Susan. Oh, and I'll just note, the belt now is permanently.
Yes.
Display that in the lobby.
Have you worn that teaching yet?
I have not. I have not.
Maybe you need to.
But Monday is Halloween, maybe that
Oh,
day.
Oh.
It's gone from your office.
I don't have a report. I have one comment. Walking the Greenbelt, Doug, to your credit on behind Lincoln Carter's house, right? I mean, that's looking good. Where we tried something new on the tree downing trees and that type of thing. It looks good. And so hopefully we keep thinking outside the box there. It's really rebuilding that bank or at least building up soil on that bank and changing the water. Lisa actually made a comment that I hear, from staff or I've heard in the past, now the creek's coming towards the trail. What's the city going to do? I said, well, can't have it both ways. Right? So it looks good.
All I have, Your Honor, is just for next week, work session on CIP. We'll have that in here. I wanted to see, is everybody planning to be here in person for that? Because we were thinking of doing kind of tables down there. We'll get some food too, because we know that CIP work session tends to be a long one. So I just wanted to check in with that. So it'll be a little bit different setup. Won't have the Zoom unless we're sitting at these seats. So with the mics. So planning to have it in here. Got a lot of information to go through, 100 million plus CIP to discuss with you. So
Same start time though.
6. Yep. Start at 6. And then Monday you'll get the packet just like you normally do, but it'll be all the CIP documents that Doug and the staff team are putting together. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Very good. Don't forget Beggars Night, Sunday, and then Halloween is Monday. So seeing no further business. Oh,
All correspondence were in the packet.
I got one for
Legal
you.
counsel?
I have a correspondence for you.
anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, we'll adjourn at 8:48.